We've got a major update coming out of New York. Earlier today on SportsCenter, the conversation turned to the Knicks' pursuit of veteran guard Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. And let's just say, this rumor is gaining serious traction across the league. Caldwell-Pope has been a championship-caliber role player everywhere he's gone. And now, New York may be positioning itself to make a run at him. We're going to break down exactly why the Knicks see him as a prime target, how the numbers could work, and why this move could reshape their off-season strategy. Here's the backdrop. Caldwell-Pope is one of the most respected 3-and-D wings in the NBA, coming off a productive season and still playing at a high level. But his current situation has created an opening, with the free agency market tightening and several contenders monitoring his status. New York sees an opportunity to add a proven playoff performer who doesn't need the ball to make a massive impact. His combination of floor spacing, perimeter defense, and championship experience is exactly what this roster has been missing. This all started when a report from The Athletic suggested that multiple Eastern Conference teams have quietly reached out to gauge Caldwell-Pope's market, and the Knicks are firmly in that mix. League sources indicate New York has the assets and the cap mechanics to get a deal done, but it may require some creative maneuvering. With their payroll already near the league's upper tier under the new CBA, adding KCP's salary might mean tough decisions elsewhere. That could involve moving one of their mid-tier contracts, or even parting with draft capital to free up the space. From a basketball standpoint, Caldwell-Pope is just about as close to a perfect role fit for what the Knicks want to be in today's league. He's the kind of wing defender who can take on elite scorers, the type of transition threat who can punish defenses before they're set, and the kind of low-maintenance veteran who thrives next to star guards like Jalen Brunson. He knows his role, embraces it, and allows the team's offensive engine, Brunson, Mikal Bridges, Julius Randle, to operate with more freedom, knowing he's there to space the floor and lock down the other end. But the reality is, fit alone doesn't make the deal automatic. The business side of the NBA is unavoidable, and for the Knicks, the margin for error is shrinking. Bringing in KCP at his market value could mean trimming depth at other positions. On the other hand, the equation changes if they believe he's the piece that elevates them from playoff team to legitimate contender. That's the calculation Leon Rose and the front office have to make. Do they prioritize roster flexibility for the long haul? Or do they push their chips in now for a player with proven championship credentials? If Caldwell-Pope comes in and plays to his strengths, staying healthy, hitting shots, locking down opposing wings, New York could find themselves in a position where they have to extend him, securing his services for multiple seasons. And here's where it gets intriguing. Sources close to the situation say KCP is open to joining a team where his role is clearly defined and his contributions valued. Both boxes the Knicks can check. While there's no official deal in place, his name has been mentioned in internal discussions as one of the team's priority targets before the season tips off. So for the Knicks, this is both exciting and challenging. Caldwell-Pope's arrival would instantly raise the team's floor on both ends of the court, but making it happen will require precision in roster building and cap management. If New York pulls this off, it's the kind of under-the-radar move that could end up defining their season. That potential move could mark a major shift for the Knicks next season. We're going to walk through exactly why Caldwell-Pope is emerging as a serious target, what it means for New York moving forward, and how it could shape their off-season plan. Here's the backdrop. Caldwell-Pope has been a key talking point this summer, largely because his contract situation makes him both valuable and attainable. The timing got tricky for the Knicks after re-signing Mikal Bridges, which tightened the team's cap flexibility. That means any significant addition, like KCP, would require some financial maneuvering. And based on the latest buzz from league insiders, New York is actively exploring ways to make the numbers work. This all picked up momentum when a report surfaced from ESPN suggesting Caldwell-Pope could be open to a move if it meant a clearly defined role and another shot at deep postseason success. In response, multiple front office sources noted that the Knicks check both boxes and have been quietly laying the groundwork to position themselves in the mix. For context, Caldwell Pope is coming off a season where he earned $15.4 million, a figure that's manageable under the right trade conditions, but still significant enough to force tough roster decisions. With 1 year remaining on his deal, he's extension eligible this offseason before hitting unrestricted free agency in 2026. That gives the Knicks a choice: secure him now for the long term, or wait to see how he fits before committing big money. And here's where the stakes get higher. Caldwell Pope's value lies in the subtle things that don't always show up in a box score. The quick closeout that forces a pass instead of a shot, the perfectly timed rotation to shut down a drive, the hard cut that creates an open look for a teammate, or the calm knockdown three from the corner when the offense breaks down. These moments rarely make highlight reels, but they're the kind of winning plays that swing playoff series. Many Knicks fans recognize that value and see how his defensive instincts and experience could elevate the team's ceiling. But there's also a segment of the fan base that's focused on his scoring limitations. He's not a high-volume shot creator, he won't break down defenders in isolation, and while he's a consistent shooter, he's not a go-to offensive option. In today's NBA, where even role players are expected to create their own shot, that has fueled skepticism. From a pure basketball fit standpoint, though, Caldwell Pope is just about ideal for this Knicks roster. He's the defensive safety net on the perimeter, capable of taking the toughest guard or wing assignment while spacing the floor and playing within the system. He's the type of glue guy who raises the floor of any contender without demanding touches. But the business side of the NBA is unforgiving. The Knicks are already operating with one of the league's tighter payroll situations under the new CBA, and adding KCP could require sacrificing depth elsewhere. If they commit to a multi-year extension at market value, it might mean parting with other rotation players or passing on future roster upgrades. That's the balancing act. How do you add a proven champion without limiting your flexibility moving forward? On the flip side, if Caldwell Pope joins and delivers the kind of defensive and shooting consistency he's shown throughout his career, the Knicks might have no choice but to lock him in for the long term. If the fit isn't perfect, they could pivot, exploring a trade before the deadline or letting him walk next summer. The important part is that KCP isn't approaching this like a player unsure of his place in the league. He's a proven winner, and sources say he's eager for another situation where his impact is fully appreciated. Behind the scenes, he's been training with a focus on versatility, preparing to guard multiple positions, increase his volume from three, and adapt to any role a contender might need. If the Knicks decide to pull the trigger, this could be one of those moves that doesn't dominate headlines today, but becomes a defining moment by the time the postseason rolls around. If Robinson is indeed hinting at a personal breakthrough or a shift in how he approaches the game, the timing couldn't be more critical. The Knicks are entering a season where expectations are sky high, and any improvement from a core piece like him could have a ripple effect across the roster. Internally, the coaching staff has long believed Robinson still has another gear to hit, whether that's becoming a more aggressive rebounder on the offensive glass, adding a short-range jumper, or improving his free throw percentage to avoid being a late-game liability. Even small gains in those areas could significantly change how opposing defenses scheme against New York. Meanwhile, the front office is preparing for every possible outcome. According to league sources, New York has already begun quietly gauging the trade market for backup plans should extension talks with Robinson stall. That doesn't necessarily mean they're looking to move him right now, but in a tight cap environment, you can't afford to be caught off guard. The Knicks have been linked in passing to a few stretch five options, as well as defensive-minded bigs who could replicate some of Robinson's rim protection if needed. For the fan base, the situation has become a dividing line. Some argue Robinson's defensive impact is irreplaceable, and that the team should pay whatever it takes to keep him in blue and orange. Others believe this is the perfect window to sell high before his next contract potentially becomes a financial burden. The debate has spilled across social media, sports talk shows, and even into the halls of Madison Square Garden, where decision-makers are well aware of the stakes. One thing is clear, Robinson himself doesn't seem fazed by the noise. In recent workouts posted online, he's been seen in peak shape, moving fluidly and flashing the kind of timing and athleticism that made him a defensive cornerstone in the first place. He's also been more vocal in team setting, which could hint at a growing leadership role, something the Knicks have been eager to see from him. The coming months will reveal whether his cryptic "big changes" post refers to a personal transformation, a shift in the team's playing style, or perhaps a major roster shakeup that involves him directly. For now, all eyes remain on training camp, where Robinson's play, demeanor, and health will be under the microscope. Because if he starts the season strong, the Knicks' front office may find themselves facing the kind of decision that could define the franchise's trajectory for years to come. We've got a major update coming out of New York. Earlier today on SportsCenter, the conversation turned to Knicks center Mitchell Robinson, and let's just say he's making headlines for more than just his defensive play. Robinson recently fired back at some Knicks fans who've been calling on him to take a pay cut, and in the process, he dropped a promise that big changes are coming next season. We're going to walk through exactly what was said, what it means for the Knicks moving forward, and why this could shape their off-season plan. So, here's the backdrop. Robinson has been a major talking point this summer, mainly because he's now eligible for a contract extension. The timing got tricky for New York once they re-signed Mikal Bridges, which tightened the team's cap flexibility. That move makes it more challenging to keep Robinson unless he's willing to come back at a discount. And based on his latest comments, that doesn't sound like it's happening. This all started when a fan left a message on Robinson's Instagram, essentially saying, "Big Mitch, we need you to take a pay cut, or else you're getting shipped." The response from Robinson? A string of laughing emojis. The fan doubled down, saying, "Come on, man. New York has had your back for 7 years, and you don't care?" That's when Robinson pushed back harder, writing, "I went out there countless nights, doing the dirty work for this city, and still got criticized. Why would I care?" For context, Robinson's set to earn $12.9 million next season, fully guaranteed, which is also his cap hit for the Knicks. It's the final year of his 4-year deal, and he'll be extension eligible this offseason before hitting unrestricted free agency in 2026. That means the front office has a decision to make: lock him up now, or wait to see what he delivers next season before committing to a new contract. And here's where the stakes get higher. Robinson clearly feels he hasn't gotten the respect he deserves, despite anchoring the defense and doing the little things that don't always show up in a box score. Many fans appreciate his role, but others focus on his offensive limitations, which has fueled criticism. From a basketball standpoint, Robinson remains just about as close to a perfect fit for what the Knicks want to be, as you'll find in today's league. He's the kind of rim protector that alters shots without even touching the ball, the type of rebounder who can turn a defensive stop into an instant fast break opportunity, and the kind of low-maintenance big man who doesn't need a dozen post-ups a night to impact winning. He knows his role, embraces it, and allows the team's offensive stars, Brunson, Bridges, Randall, to operate with space and confidence, knowing the paint is locked down behind them. But the reality is, fit alone doesn't pay the bills in the NBA. The business side of the sport is unavoidable. And for the Knicks, it's getting more complicated by the day. With one of the league's tighter payrolls under the new CBA, New York's margin for error is thin. Keeping Robinson at a premium salary might mean tough decisions elsewhere. Maybe letting go of rotation players they'd rather keep. Maybe bypassing opportunities to add depth at other positions. If he insists on top-dollar value for his services, the front office has to weigh that against the flexibility they'd lose. On the other hand, the equation changes dramatically if Robinson has the kind of season he's hinting at. If he can stay healthy, something that's been an issue in past years, and turn in a truly dominant campaign on both ends, New York might be boxed into rewarding him. That could mean a fresh multi-year deal, potentially securing his place as the team's defensive anchor for the foreseeable future, maybe even the rest of his career. But if his production stalls, or his health becomes a question again, the Knicks could pivot quickly, exploring trade options at the deadline or mapping out a sign-and-trade scenario next summer to recoup value. The thing is, Robinson isn't approaching this like a player unsure of his place. In fact, the opposite. On his personal Facebook page, he all but promised a major shift for next season, hinting that he has big changes in store, not just for his game, but possibly for his role and his overall approach. He didn't give specifics, but the tone was confident, even defiant. If you read between the lines, it sounds like a player ready to silence critics, maximize his contract year, and force the Knicks' hand in the best possible way. And for New York, that's both exciting and challenging, because if Robinson delivers on that promise, they'll have to decide whether to go all in on keeping their defensive backbone or gamble on finding someone else who can fill those shoes. We've got a major update coming out of New York. Earlier today on SportsCenter, the conversation turned to Knicks center Mitchell Robinson, and let's just say he's making headlines for more than just his defensive play. Robinson recently fired back at some Knicks fans who've been calling on him to take a pay cut, and in the process, he dropped a promise that big changes are coming next season. We're going to walk through exactly what was said, what it means for the Knicks moving forward, and why this could shape their off-season plans. So, here's the backdrop. Robinson has been a major talking point this summer, mainly because he's now eligible for a contract extension. The timing got tricky for New York once they re-signed Mikal Bridges, which tightened the team's cap flexibility. That move makes it more challenging to keep Robinson unless he's willing to come back at a discount. And based on his latest comments, that doesn't sound like it's happening. This all started when a fan left a message on Robinson's Instagram, essentially saying, "Big Mitch, we need you to take a pay cut, or else you're getting shipped." The response from Robinson? A string of laughing emoji. The fan doubled down, saying, "Come on, man. New York has had your back for 7 years, and you don't care?" That's when Robinson pushed back harder, writing, "I went out there countless nights, doing the dirty work for this city, and still got criticized. Why would I care?" For context, Robinson's set to earn $12.9 million next season, fully guaranteed, which is also his cap hit for the Knicks. It's the final year of his 4-year deal, and he'll be extension eligible this offseason before hitting unrestricted free agency in 2026. That means the front office has a decision to make: lock him up now, or wait to see what he delivers next season before committing to a new contract. And here's where the stakes get higher. Robinson clearly feels he hasn't gotten the respect he deserves despite anchoring the defense and doing. The truth is, Robinson's value often lies in the little things that don't always show up in the box score. The extra effort to contest a shot without fouling, the tap-out rebound that keeps a possession alive, the hard screen that frees up a shooter, or the way his presence alone deters opponents from even thinking about driving into the lane. Those nuances rarely make highlight reels, but they're exactly the kind of contributions that win playoff games. Many Knicks fans recognize and appreciate that. They see how his defensive IQ and hustle change the flow of a game. But there's also a vocal portion of the fan base that focuses on his offensive limitation. He's not stretching the floor, he's not a consistent post-up option, and his free throw shooting has been an ongoing challenge. In today's NBA, where even centers are expected to hit threes, or at least punish mismatches inside, that lack of offensive diversity has fueled criticism and, for some, overshadowed his defensive brilliance. From a pure basketball fit standpoint, though, Robinson is still about as close to ideal as it gets for this Knicks roster. He's their safety net on defense, protecting the rim like a human eraser, controlling the glass on both ends, and allowing the offensive stars to focus on what they do best without worrying about the paint. He's a glue piece in the truest sense, the kind of player who ties the whole system together. But the business side of the NBA is unforgiving. The Knicks are already operating with one of the league's tighter payroll situations under the new CBA rules, and keeping this core intact will require some difficult decisions. If Robinson wants to secure a top-dollar extension, and all indications are that he does, it could mean the front office has to cut ties with other role players or pass on potential roster upgrades. That's the balancing act facing New York. How do you reward one of your most important defenders without sacrificing the depth that makes the team so competitive? On the flip side, if he stays healthy and delivers a breakout season, the Knicks may have no choice but to reward him. That could mean a multi-year extension and a long-term future in New York. If not, the alternative could be a mid-season trade or sign and trade next summer. But Robinson isn't acting like a player unsure of his future. On his own social media, he hinted at a big year ahead, posting on Facebook that major changes are coming. It's not clear exactly what he meant, but if his tone is any indication, he's gearing up for something significant in the 2025 campaign. So here's what came out on First Take this morning, and it caught a lot of people off guard. NBA insiders are reporting a surprising new wrinkle in the New York Knicks' free agency plan. We already knew they were keeping tabs on a number of players, but now there's a fresh name surfacing in the conversation, one that's suddenly getting a lot more attention. The debate right now isn't just about who they should sign, but who actually fits best with what Mike Brown wants to build going into next season. And according to the panel, there's been a major update worth breaking down. Now, if you've been following the Knicks' off-season chatter, you've probably noticed how many free agents have been linked to them over the past few weeks. It feels like every other day there's a new rumor, but the one that keeps coming back is Ben Simmons. Like it or not, Simmons has been at the center of conversations for multiple teams, including the Knicks and the Kings, as a potential low-cost, high-upside bench piece on a veteran's minimum deal. And, just like we've seen with every fan base that's connected to him, the reaction is split. Some see the upside, others can't get past the concern. What First Take emphasized, however, is that Simmons isn't the only name floating around in the conversation. Another intriguing possibility, and one that instantly grabbed the panel's attention, is Russell Westbrook. This isn't the first time his name has come up. SNY has touched on this scenario before, and one of the analysts earlier today doubled down on the idea. Though, with a heavy dose of realism, Westbrook is still very much a long shot. The Knicks' backcourt is already jam-packed, with established guards carving out significant roles, and there's no obvious path to giving Westbrook consistent, meaningful minutes. Still, there's an undeniable case to be made for him. When you put him side by side with Simmons and Malcolm Brogdon, Westbrook has arguably been the more impactful presence over the past few seasons, not necessarily in raw scoring numbers, but in the way he influences the game's tempo and energy. While it's true that he's lost a fraction of that explosive first step that made him an MVP, Westbrook has managed to reinvent himself. He's embraced the gritty side of the game, playing hard-nosed perimeter defense, pushing the ball in transition with urgency, and injecting instant energy into whatever lineup he's in. There's also the intangible factor, that relentless competitive fire that's been his trademark for over a decade. He doesn't coast through possessions, he doesn't shy away from physicality, and he has a knack for creating momentum-shifting plays that don't always show up in the box score. On a short-term, low-cost deal, that kind of presence could be a quiet but significant boost for New York, especially in stretches where the offense goes stagnant. The real sticking point is whether Westbrook would be willing to embrace that kind of reduced role, essentially coming in as a spark off the bench, when the Knicks already have 3 capable guards ahead of him in the rotation. It's a balancing act between opportunity, ego, and fit. And as of now, that's what keeps this idea in the interesting but unlikely category. Last season, Westbrook averaged 13 points, 5 rebounds, and 6 assists. Not quite the numbers he posted in his prime, but still the production of a legitimate NBA point guard. He's never been a great outside shooter, but he quietly knocked down 43% of his corner threes, while shooting 45% overall from the field and 32% from deep, right around his career average. At 37 years old next season, entering his 18th year, he's not the superstar he once was, but he's still a competitor who can impact games in bursts. When you stack him up against Ben Simmons statistically, Westbrook still comes out ahead in most categories. Simmons, of course, brings elite defense, position flexibility, and the ability to initiate the offense. And that's exactly why the Knicks are intrigued. His averages last year, 5 points, 5 rebounds, and 5.5 assists on 52% shooting, don't jump off the page, but his defensive impact does. Then there's Malcolm Brogdon, another player the Knicks have had interest in before. The panel noted that he had an uncharacteristically rough shooting year, hitting just 28% from deep. But they chalked it up to the losing situation he was in, saying that on a winning team like New York, he could bounce back to his career norm. We've seen him play at a high level in Indiana and Boston, so it's not unrealistic. Even in a down year, Brogdon still averaged 13 points, 4 rebounds, and 4 assists, while hitting 40% on corner threes. He's a steady defender and a veteran who knows his role. Exactly the kind of piece that could quietly strengthen a rotation without the spotlight that comes with bigger names. And here's the point that kept coming up on First Take. The Knicks already have a crowded backcourt. That's the #1 reason they're leaning more toward Ben Simmons than some of these other names. Simmons isn't locked into just one role. He can slide into multiple positions, defend across the board, and still initiate the offense. Westbrook, on the other hand, is a pure point guard. That's who he's always been. And at this stage of his career, that's not going to change. The Knicks have been very intentional about surrounding Jalen Brunson with other ball handlers, so he doesn't have to dominate the rock every single possession. In that sense, Westbrook does check some boxes for Mike Brown's system. He brings pace, leadership, and the kind of relentless energy that pushes a team forward. But you can't ignore the reality. He's not a shooter. And in today's NBA, that's a big limitation. Now, he's still quick, still knows how to speed up a game, and he could be an extension of the coaching staff on the floor. That's the veteran advantage. And while this Knicks roster isn't particularly young, most of these guys are in their prime, which means it's less about him mentoring a bunch of kids and more about adding another experienced competitor who knows what it takes to win. Statistically, Westbrook's playoff run was respectable, averaging 11.7 points, 4 rebounds, and 2.5 assists over 13 games in roughly 24 minutes a night. On paper, those numbers might not leap off the page, but they speak to a veteran who still knows how to impact a game in bursts. His shooting splits, however, told a different story, just under 40% from the field and 32% from beyond the arc. In the modern NBA, where spacing has become a non-negotiable for most playoff teams, that inefficiency becomes more noticeable. And in certain lineups, particularly if you pair him with Mitchell Robinson and Josh Hart, the floor can get cramped fast. Defenses will sag off, clog the paint, and dare multiple players to shoot, which can throw an entire offense out of rhythm. That's essentially the same issue that has followed Ben Simmons throughout his career. Size, strength, and defensive versatility are valuable. But if opponents don't respect your jumper, the offense can stagnate. Even so, Westbrook showed there's still juice in his game. He had big moments, most notably his standout Game 7 performance against the Clippers, where he posted 16 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, and 5 steals while shooting efficiently from the floor. Beyond the box score, his energy and intensity set a tone for his teammates, often giving his squad a boost when they needed it most. He also delivered in clutch situations during Denver's playoff run, including a critical game-winning steal in Game 1 of their first-round series that completely shifted the momentum. Plays like that are why coaches still trust him in high-leverage moments. He has the instincts, the experience, and the competitive fire to swing a game. But as the analysts noted, it's a move with clear pros and cons. The upside is leadership, playoff experience, and the ability to take over stretches of a game. The downside is fit and spacing, factors that can make or break a team's postseason success. And here's the twist. The Knicks aren't the only team in on Russ. The Kings reportedly have dreams of pairing Jonathan Kuminga with Westbrook this offseason. Meanwhile, there's another name that some in New York's front office are quietly pushing: Landry Shamet. The logic here is simple. The Knicks could use another quick-release shooter. Shamet proved his value when given consistent playoff minutes, shooting a ridiculous 54% from 3 in limited action. He's not going to run your offense, but that's what Jordan Clarkson's for. And the Knicks may be overlooking the fact that Clarkson can already take on that role. To me, Shamet is like a budget version of Dante DiVincenzo, still effective, still reliable, but without the big price tag. If it's not Shamet, then maybe Malcolm Brogdon makes more sense. Either way, the theme from the first take discussion was clear. Get someone who can actually hit a jumper. This team already has non-shooters in the rotation, and while Josh Hart can knock down shots when needed, he's not a high-volume threat. Adding another player who can't stretch the floor is risky, and it's why the front office needs to think carefully before going all in on someone like Simmons or Westbrook. Josh Hart's reluctance to consistently take shots from deep remains a talking point. At his best, he's proven he can be an effective shooter. He's had entire seasons hovering around the 40% mark from three. Over the last two postseasons, Hart has connected on 37% of his attempts from beyond the arc, showing he can deliver when it matters most. But during the regular season, that same confidence isn't always there, and it impacts the offense. While regular season wins and losses aren't the main concern, having him fully committed to taking those open looks is crucial. If that hesitation carries into the year, and you add players like Russell Westbrook or Ben Simmons into the mix alongside Mitchell Robinson, spacing could quickly become an issue. That kind of congestion would limit the fluidity of Mike Brown's offense, making it far less effective. So the question is, who should New York target next? Would you be interested in seeing Westbrook in a Knicks jersey? Drop your thoughts below. There's still plenty to cover in free agency, and upcoming discussions will connect these rumors to broader roster strategies rather than just throwing out random player names or Photoshop swaps back-to-back. The countdown to training camp has officially begun, and the excitement is real. We're just weeks away from basketball being back, and with that comes a wave of roster activity. Expect the Knicks to fill out training camp spots, finalize two-way deals, lock in a veteran minimum signing, and add a rookie minimum contract. The next few days and weeks will be busy, and every move will be worth tracking. Stay tuned, keep notifications on, and get ready for non-stop updates as the Knicks gear up for a pivotal season. What aired on SportsCenter tonight got Knicks fans buzzing, because it's clear now the New York Knicks are making some major internal shifts, particularly when it comes to how the team is going to operate this season. The broadcast broke down some very real signs that a philosophical change is on the horizon, especially with how the rotations are about to look under head coach Mike Brown. And Knicks fans, they've been waiting for something like this. A fresh identity, a more modern system, something that reflects the personnel the Knicks actually have, not just a stubborn system. So here's what was said on the program, and let's break it down. First off, the big headline: New York is poised to shift from a defensive-minded, grinded-out approach to a much faster, more offensive-driven style of play. And that shift begins at the top, with Mike Brown taking over for Tom Thibodeau. For the first time in years, it seems like the Knicks are going to start using their bench consistently, which was not the case under Thibs. His rotations were tight, often to a fault, and the pace? It was slow, methodical, painfully so, especially when your two most dynamic offensive weapons are Jalen Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns. Under Mike Brown, that's changing. Expect a quicker tempo, more ball movement, more pace and space. The Knicks are finally leaning into what they do best, not just sticking to what's safe. The report went on to highlight how this approach better fits the current makeup of the roster. Offensively, this team has legitimate firepower. Brunson, Towns, Bridges, Anunoby, all proven scorers in different ways. But defensively? Not everyone is a lockdown presence, so building an identity around offense and flexibility makes a ton of sense. And that brings us to what was arguably the most interesting part of the SportsCenter segment, the question of the starting lineup. According to insider Christian Winfield, there's been internal discussion about sticking with the current core of starters, and Ian Begley backed that up, noting there's support within the organization to keep things intact. You might remember how the Knicks nearly pulled off a comeback against the Pacers in the playoffs, and part of that was Josh Hart entering the starting five in place of Mitchell Robinson. That shift gave the Knicks more perimeter defense and better spacing. But here's where it gets tricky. With Mitchell Robinson healthy and Towns locked into a massive contract, over $53 million for 2025 to 26, it's difficult to imagine a world where either of those two comes off the bench. Bridges and Anunoby are also making significant money, and they're vital to the wing rotation. So the big debate becomes, who starts, who sits? Robinson came off the bench late last year while recovering from injury and still made an impact. But if he's 100% healthy, does Mike Brown insert him back into the starting five? If not, and he stays in a reserve role, then the most likely candidate to slide in would be Josh Hart. The staff reportedly likes the idea, but only if Hart's three-point shot is falling. Last regular season, he shot just 33.3% from deep. However, over his last two playoff runs with the Knicks, he's hit 37% from beyond the arc, which is more than serviceable. Essentially, you're looking at two possible outcomes. Either Robinson starts, and you pair two 7-footers together in the front court, or Hart gets the nod, and you spread the floor around town. Both setups have their pros and cons. The report continued by exploring possible minute distribution and how the Knicks could stagger their bigs. Even if Robinson doesn't start, he can still play heavy minutes. That allows players like Ariel Hukporti to get some time, especially as he develops. Remember, Hukporti isn't your typical rookie anymore. He's coming into this season a bit more mature and polished, and the Knicks want to see what they have in him. And don't forget Gershon Yabusele. The versatile forward brings a different look. He can play the 4, switch onto smaller players, and even spend time at the 5 in small ball lineups. That added flexibility gives Mike Brown options that simply didn't exist under Thibodeau. Winfield also emphasized how important that up-tempo approach is going to be for some of these younger guys. Hukporti, for instance, is a natural rim runner. He's fast, athletic, and a surprisingly good high-post passer, drawing early comparisons to Isaiah Hartenstein in terms of style and decision-making. That makes him a great fit for Brown's system, but at the end of the day, the anchor in the middle might still be Mitchell Robinson. The numbers don't lie. He averaged 7 rebounds, 5 points per game in last year's playoffs, while shooting a ridiculous 61% from the field. And he was still grabbing nearly 4 offensive boards per game, which is elite. The shot blocking wasn't quite at full strength post-injury, but that will likely return with rhythm and health. Robinson still does all the little things that don't show up in the box score: sealing defenders, resetting possessions, protecting the paint, all of it. So while it's not a certainty who gets the nod to start at center, one thing is clear: the Knicks have real depth, real versatility, and a real identity forming under Mike Brown. And it's about time. What came next on tonight's SportsCenter broadcast really drove the point home. This wasn't just about rotations or fit. It was about identity, continuity, and what one player has come to mean to an entire organization. That player is Mitchell Robinson. And the message from the panel was loud and clear. He's not just an energy big or a backup center. He's the heart of a roster that's undergone years of change. And yet, somehow, he's still here, still vital, still defining what it means to wear that Knicks jersey. They walked through the history, and it's remarkable. Mitchell Robinson, who first joined the Knicks during the Porzingis era, is still around. Yes, Kristaps was on the team when Mitch got drafted, even though the two never shared the court. The fact that Robinson's tenure stretches that far back tells you everything about his durability and his place in the franchise. He's seen it all: the old front office, multiple head coaches, draft busts, playoff droughts, and now, finally, the rise of a real contender. Through it all, Mitch has remained a cornerstone. And it's not by accident. It's because what he brings to the table still matters just as much today as it did when he entered the league. Actually, maybe even more. He's still one of the best offensive rebounders in the game. He still protects the rim. He still finishes at a high clip. He still brings that vertical threat that forces defenses to stay honest. And most of all, he doesn't try to be something he's not. He understands his role better than most players in the league, and he thrives in it. That's rare. And it's valuable. The Sports Center team backed it up with numbers, specifically the four-man lineup data from last season's playoffs. When Robinson and Karl Anthony Towns shared the floor, the Knicks were dominant. The combination of Anunoby, Towns, Mitch, and Deuce McBride delivered a staggering net rating of nearly plus 58. Even when you swap OG out for Josh Hart, the numbers stayed elite at plus 36, and it didn't stop there. Bridges, Towns, Robinson, and McBride were up around plus 31. Even lesser-used groupings like Payne, Anunoby, Towns, and Mitch came in above plus 13. And the wildest part? Jalen Brunson wasn't even in those lineups. That tells you how impactful Mitch and Towns were together. Those groups worked, and they worked consistently. And this year, the Knicks have upgraded their guard depth. They've moved on from Cameron Payne. That means those lineups, already dominant, could be even better moving forward. That's why, as they said on air, Robinson isn't just a useful piece. He's essential. The rebounding, the defense, the verticality, the screen setting, the toughness. That stuff doesn't show up in highlight reels, but it wins game. He's elite at what he does. And in a league where teams are constantly looking for the next shiny thing, there's something to be said for the guy who just keeps showing up and doing his job at a high level. But there's also a tactical angle to all of this, because starting Mitchell Robinson gives Towns freedom to float out to the perimeter, where he's most dangerous offensively. When Robinson occupies defenders in the paint, opposing centers can't just camp out and double Towns. They have to account for Mitch, and that changes the spacing. It opens up the offense. It forces teams to make choices, and that's what they struggled to do last season when Josh Hart was starting at the 4. The show broke it down. Hart was great during the regular season. He gave them 13.6 points, 10 rebounds, 6 assists, over 50% from the field. He brought energy and toughness. But in the playoffs, teams adjusted. Big men started guarding him. They dared him to shoot. They backed off, crowded Towns, clogged the paint, and it worked. Hart didn't shoot enough threes to make them pay, and suddenly, the offense slowed down. Spacing shrank. Driving lanes vanished, and it impacted everyone, especially Brunson and Towns. With Mitch, that dynamic shifts. He doesn't space the floor horizontally, but he does vertically. He stays in that dunker spot. He makes you guard him, and if you don't, he'll grab every offensive rebound and make you regret it. That creates room for Towns. It gives Brunson angles to drive. It keeps the defense honest, and it leads to better rhythm and better shots. The Sports Center panel also raised an interesting possibility, something that would have been laughed off just a season ago: a starting backcourt of Jalen Brunson and Deuce McBride. Now sure, it's small, but Deuce has proven he belongs. The man has become one of the most disruptive perimeter defenders in the league, and he's a knockdown shooter now too. He hit 37% from deep in the regular season, same number in the playoffs. He's not a liability anymore, he's a weapon. When he shared the floor with Brunson last season, the results were strong. Nearly 700 minutes together during the regular season. Net rating of plus 6.9. In the postseason, pi 9.0 in just under 200 minutes. That's not just decent, that's playoff-winning production. So while size will always be a question, especially in a league with bigger backcourts, the skill set is real. 2 guards who can shoot, pass, and defend. That works when you surround them with versatile wings and dominant bigs like Mitch and Towns. What Sports Center highlighted tonight was this: the Knicks aren't locked into any one identity. With Mike Brown now running the show, they're being creative, they're using data, they're testing combinations, and for the first time in a long time, New York has real flexibility. They can play big, they can go small, they can run, they can defend. And if Mitch is healthy, that opens the door for everything else to fall into place. This isn't the same old Knicks team. They're deeper, they're smarter, they're tougher. And with Robinson in the lineup, the foundation is as solid as it's been in years. What comes next is up to them. But after what we saw laid out tonight, one thing is clear. This team is ready to make noise, and fans have every reason to believe it. What really stood out during the next segment of tonight's Sports Center was how the conversation evolved beyond just the core group of starters. The panel shifted the focus to the broader picture, specifically how Mike Brown might approach his backcourt options heading into the season. And one name that kept coming up again and again was Deuce McBride. The numbers were brought up right away. Last season, when Jalen Brunson, Karl Anthony Towns, and McBride shared the floor, the Knicks had a net rating of 113.4 across nearly 300 minutes. And in the playoffs, while the trio didn't maintain the same dominance, they still held their own and played to a near-even mark. That's a positive indicator in a postseason setting, especially considering how new some of those lineups were. But what makes the Brunson-McBride pairing so intriguing, and what the show emphasized, is the natural chemistry between the two. Brunson has always thrived playing next to other guards who can knock down shots and take some of the defensive pressure off. McBride does exactly that. He defends the point of attack better than arguably anyone else on the roster, and has improved tremendously as a shooter. Last season, he averaged 9.5 points per game, with 3 assists, 5 rebounds, a steal per night, while shooting 37% from deep and 40% from the field overall. That's the type of production you can build with. He doesn't need to dominate the ball. He plays within the system, and he makes smart reads. But this wasn't just about stats. The panel on SportsCenter reminded viewers that Mike Brown is no stranger to starting smaller lineups. During his time in Sacramento, the Kings were known for playing undersized. Their starting five often featured De'Aaron Fox and Malik Monk in the backcourt with Harrison Barnes at the wing and a front court of Keegan Murray and Domantas Sabonis. That wasn't a traditional physically imposing group, yet it was effective. And that's because Brown prioritized pace, spacing, and ball movement over sheer size. The message was clear. Mike Brown isn't going to hesitate to go small if it fits the vision. After all, this is the same coach who sat on the Warriors bench during their title runs. He understands how modern basketball works, and if that means running out a Brunson-McBride starting duo, he'll do it. And McBride's playoff performance last season gave plenty of reason to believe he could handle the role. He averaged 6 points per game in the postseason, shooting 37% from three, nearly all of his attempts coming from deep. His shot profile was consistent, his defensive intensity remained high, and he proved he could contribute on that big stage. That's what matters most. Still, the discussion didn't stop there. One other name came up during the show, someone who might be flying under the radar for now, but could soon become a serious rotation factor: Pacome Dadier. The 6'7" French wing was the Knicks' first-round pick in the 2024 draft, and while his rookie year didn't feature much NBA action, he spent most of it in Westchester with the G League squad. His skill set has the front office excited. Kristen Winfield, featured during the segment, floated a bold idea: throw Dadiet into the fire and see what happens. The argument? He's got the size, he's got the tools, a near 9-foot standing reach, a smooth shooting form, and the instincts of a modern 3-and-D wing. He showed flashes in Summer League, including an 8-for-13 shooting night against Detroit, where he dropped 17 points before a toe sprain sidelined him. Winfield noted that while it's unlikely the Knicks would start him right away, Dadiet adds a different flavor to the rotation and is likely to carve out minutes this year if his development keeps trending upward. The potential is there. He's active on both ends, doesn't shy away from contact, and wants to put the ball on the floor. He might still be raw, but the upside is real. If the Knicks can mold him properly, they might have found a hidden gem late in the first round. And who knows, given the unpredictable nature of an 82-game season, injuries and matchups might force the Knicks to throw him into the fire sooner than expected. If that happens, tonight's discussion suggested he might be more ready than people think. So with all that said, the big question becomes this: who rounds out the starting five? SportsCenter closed the segment by putting the spotlight on that final slot. We know Brunson will be there. We know Towns will be there. OG Anunoby is a lock. Mikal Bridges likely starts as well. But that fifth spot? It's wide open. Could it be Mitchell Robinson anchoring the paint and doing all the dirty work? Maybe it's Josh Hart, who brings energy, rebounding, and versatility even with his spacing concern. Deuce McBride makes a compelling case with his defense and shooting. Gershon Yabusele has been mentioned, especially for his size and mobility. Jordan Clarkson remains an option if the Knicks want scoring punch. And then, of course, there's Dediet, raw, intriguing, and still unproven, but someone who could be part of something unexpected. That was the note they ended on. The idea that this Knicks team, under Mike Brown, won't be afraid to experiment. The starting five could evolve. Roles may change. Young players might be trusted with bigger responsibilities earlier than usual. And that sense of unpredictability isn't a weakness. It might be one of the team's biggest strengths heading into the season. What's clear is that New York is approaching this campaign with a different mindset. They're leaning into their depth, they're leaning into versatility, and they're trusting that guys like McBride, Robinson, and maybe even Dediet can help shape the identity of a team that's hungry to break through in the East. And for the Knicks faithful, watching it all unfold live on SportsCenter tonight, that's more than enough reason to be excited about what's coming next. The New York Knicks are staying active this offseason, exploring avenues to solidify their roster beyond just developmental moves. Recent buzz has centered on the possibility of adding Dillon Brooks, the defensive-minded forward currently with the Houston Rockets, to Tom Thibodeau's rotation. While nothing is imminent, the idea has gained traction as New York evaluates how to maximize its wing depth and two-way versatility. Despite entering the offseason with limited financial flexibility, the Knicks have positioned themselves to remain opportunistic if the right veteran piece becomes available. Brooks, known for his relentless perimeter defense and physical edge, checks many of the boxes the Knicks value under Thibodeau. His potential arrival would not only bolster their defensive schemes, but also provide a reliable option to guard the East's elite wing, players like Jason Tatum, Jimmy Butler, and Jaylen Brown. The key factor here is timing and fit. New York has already built a strong foundation with Jalen Brunson, OG Anunoby, Julius Randle, and Mitchell Robinson, but the team still lacks a true enforcer on the wing who thrives on toughness and setting a tone. Brooks has built his reputation on exactly that, bringing intensity every night and refusing to shy away from physical matchups. For a franchise that prides itself on grit and identity, his addition could feel like a natural extension of what they already stand for. There are, however, roster mechanics to consider. To create room for Brooks, New York would need to explore either a sign-and-trade scenario or salary maneuvering through smaller contracts. Players like Miles McBride or even Mitchell Robinson, depending on market interest, have been mentioned in speculative chatter as potential outgoing pieces in a larger deal. While that remains hypothetical, it underscores how creative the Knicks may need to be if Brooks becomes a legitimate target. From a stylistic standpoint, Brooks' defensive presence could complement Anunoby perfectly, giving New York arguably the most formidable perimeter duo in the East. And while his offensive game has been streaky, particularly from beyond the arc, he did post a career-best shooting season with Houston last year, showing that he can adapt when surrounded by playmakers. Slotting into a lineup with Brunson and Randle would allow Brooks to focus on what he does best: energy, defense, and timely shot-making. The intrigue around Brooks also lies in what it signals about New York's long-term planning. Rather than leaning solely on young developmental prospects, the front office appears to be considering ways to balance veteran edge with rising talent. A potential move for Brooks suggests the Knicks want to fortify themselves not just for the regular season, but for the type of playoff battles where toughness and defensive versatility can swing a series. In short, Brooks represents more than just another body on the roster. He's a tone setter. And if the Knicks can find the right path to bring him in, it would be a move that aligns perfectly with Thibodeau's identity and gives New York an even stronger defensive backbone heading into next season. Still, much of the buzz around the Knicks this offseason revolves around their interest in Dillon Brooks. While Brooks isn't a young developmental prospect like the Summer League players, his arrival could dramatically reshape the wing rotation and defensive identity of the team. Known for his physicality, toughness, and ability to guard multiple positions, Brooks would provide immediate impact, giving Tom Thibodeau a reliable option to match up against elite scorers night after night. At the end of the day, the Knicks are carefully balancing their roster between youth and experienced wings who can contribute right away. The goal is clear: find players who can either step in immediately and influence games on both ends of the floor, or provide depth that frees up the team's stars to excel. Adding Brooks would allow New York to pair him alongside Jalen Brunson, Julius Randle, and OG Anunoby, forming a defensive core capable of slowing down the best perimeter scorers in the league. One important factor to consider is how Brooks fits alongside the younger players. While he brings veteran experience, his presence also creates a mentorship dynamic, showing guys like Miles McBride or potential two-way call-ups how to navigate high-level NBA competition. Brooks thrives in a system that values discipline, communication, and effort on every possession, traits that younger Knicks players could emulate. For the Knicks, adding Brooks isn't just about defense. It's about the energy and edge he brings, the kind that can swing close games in the regular season and elevate playoff matchups. His ability to contribute offensively, particularly in transition or on secondary scoring opportunities, complements New York's stars without demanding primary touches. That makes him a low-risk, high-reward veteran acquisition. Of course, no move is guaranteed. Salary cap considerations, roster mechanics, and potential outgoing pieces all factor into whether Brooks can actually join the Knicks. But from a strategic standpoint, targeting him makes a lot of sense. He would give New York a known commodity in high-leverage situations, a player whose reputation precedes him and who has repeatedly shown he can compete at the highest level. And when you look at the bigger picture, this potential addition aligns with New York's broader plan. The Knicks aren't just chasing immediate win. They're building a roster capable of contending now while maintaining flexibility for future moves. Adding a player like Brooks would reinforce their defensive identity, create matchup versatility, and strengthen the team's positioning in the East. Odds makers have already taken notice. With New York projected as one of the better squads in the league heading into the 2025-2026 season, discussions about 55-plus wins are already circulating. While elite teams like Oklahoma City, Cleveland, and Houston lead projections, the Knicks are firmly in the conversation alongside Denver and Orlando. Adding a player like Brooks could be the type of subtle yet meaningful upgrade that pushes New York closer to that elite tier, reinforcing their status as serious contenders. This balance between building for today and investing in tomorrow is exactly why Leon Rose and his staff continue to inspire confidence. They're not chasing quick fixes or flashy signings for the sake of headlines. Instead, they're carefully evaluating players who can deliver immediate impact while also fitting into a sustainable long-term vision. Dillon Brooks, if he comes aboard, would exemplify that philosophy perfectly. A veteran wing who brings both toughness and versatility, complementing New York's core while helping younger players grow. Brooks isn't just another scoring option. His defensive acumen allows Tom Thibodeau to deploy multiple high-intensity schemes, whether it's switching on ball screens, contesting perimeter shooters, or anchoring rotations against elite wings. That kind of defensive flexibility is priceless in today's NBA, where every possession is magnified and small adjustments can decide playoff series. Pairing Brooks with Jalen Brunson, Julius Randle, and Miles McBride creates a perimeter defensive unit that can take on any combination in the East, giving the Knicks a clear edge in tight game. Offensively, Brooks adds a dimension that the Knicks have been seeking. He can create his own shot off the dribble, attack closeouts aggressively, and stretch defenses with timely three-point shooting. While not the primary scorer, his ability to contribute in transition and secondary plays allows New York's stars to operate more freely, keeping defenses honest and opening lanes for others. Essentially, Brooks could serve as both a stabilizing force and a catalyst, providing energy, spacing, and competitiveness in crunch moments. Moreover, his presence impacts the team beyond the court. Younger players like Miles McBride, potential two-way call-ups, or even rookie-scale signees benefit from having a professional who embodies work ethic, intensity, and basketball IQ. Brooks has shown throughout his career that preparation, film study, and toughness translate directly to wins, and that example is invaluable for a roster still blending youth and experience. From a strategic standpoint, the Knicks' front office is also navigating financial considerations carefully. Adding Brooks would be a calculated move, providing high upside without jeopardizing cap flexibility. Unlike chasing a star free agent at maximum salary, targeting a player like Brooks allows New York to enhance its roster, retain options for the future, and continue building around their core of stars. It's the type of move that doesn't grab headlines immediately, but can dramatically affect playoff outcomes and long-term positioning. The potential arrival of Brooks also signals the Knicks' commitment to identity. New York has long been known for its defensive-minded approach under Thibodeau, and adding a versatile, high-energy wing reinforces that culture. It sends a message to the league. The Knicks are serious about contention, not just through offensive talent, but through effort, discipline, and intensity on every possession. For fans, it means more competitive games, tighter defensive rotations, and the kind of gritty basketball that can define a championship-caliber team. Looking at the bigger picture, this off-season approach mirrors the strategy that has made New York a projected top-tier team heading into 2025-2026. Odds makers have recognized the blend of veteran experience, young talent, and strategic depth. With Brooks in the mix, the Knicks not only strengthen their wing rotation, but also create matchup versatility across multiple positions. That can be the difference between winning a tough playoff series or being eliminated early. Finally, the Knicks' vision goes beyond a single season. They are constructing a team capable of sustained success, a model where stars like Brunson and Randle can thrive alongside complementary veterans like Brooks, while young players develop in a structured, competitive environment. Each move is deliberate, each contract measured, and each roster spot thoughtfully allocated. By focusing on smart acquisitions rather than headline-grabbing splashes, New York positions itself as a perennial contender. For fans, the potential Dillon Brooks signing is exciting for multiple reasons: the immediate impact on both ends of the floor, the mentorship opportunities for young players, and the message it sends about the organization's long-term plan. The Knicks are signaling that they are all in, balancing the present and the future, chasing contention while building a foundation that could sustain championship-level performance for years to come. With this type of calculated strategy, the Knicks are sending a clear message. They aren't just participating in the league, they're shaping it, taking measured steps to elevate their roster while maintaining flexibility and maximizing every asset. And if Brooks officially lands in New York, it could be one of the most underrated but strategically brilliant moves of the offseason, setting the stage for a team that is not only ready to compete now, but built to remain a contender well into the future. In a surprising development, the New York Knicks have emerged as potential landing spots for former MVP Russell Westbrook as the team continues its search for another guard in free agency. Meanwhile, newly signed Jordan Clarkson has opened up about his decision to join the Knicks, citing the passionate fan base, the surrounding community, and several other motivating factors. We're going to break all of this down, so there's plenty to discuss. Before diving in, if you're part of the 57% of viewers who haven't subscribed yet, make sure to hit that subscribe button for daily Knicks coverage. Also, turn on notifications so you don't miss any updates. Recently, reports suggested that a Westbrook to Knicks move was unlikely, with Sacramento previously appearing to be his most probable destination. Now, however, the situation seems less clear, leaving the door open for potential opportunities. The Knicks remain interested in a true floor general, a point guard capable of controlling the game and handling the ball consistently, something they don't fully have with players like Deuce McBride and Jordan Clarkson, who aren't natural lead guards. The team has also evaluated Ben Simmons extensively, appreciating his size and ability to act as a primary ball handler while allowing Clarkson and McBride to play alongside him without overcrowding the backcourt. Considering the projected starting lineup next season, which could include Josh Hart, Mitchell Robinson, and Westbrook, The Knicks would need to carefully balance minutes and roles to maintain spacing and efficiency. According to Andy Bailey from Bleacher Report, the Knicks addressed backcourt depth by adding Clarkson after his buyout, but they had also shown interest in Westbrook as far back as July. Westbrook could bring a boost in playmaking, particularly in lineups featuring sharpshooters like Karl Anthony Towns, Mikal Bridges, and Obi Toppin. His ability to attack the rim would be enhanced by the spacing provided by these shooters, creating lanes that would be difficult for defenses to cover. Statistically, last season Westbrook averaged 13 points, 6 assists, and 5 rebounds per game, shooting 45% from the field and 32% from three-point range, with a strong corner 3 percentage of nearly 44%. While his playoff shooting wasn't remarkable, 12 points, 4 rebounds, 2.5 assists, 39% from the field, and 32% from deep, he still contributed defensively and helped his team make a competitive run, nearly taking down the eventual champions in the process. From a roster perspective, adding Westbrook off the bench alongside Josh Hart could create spacing and positional issues, especially if Deuce McBride and Clarkson are also in the rotation. A unit with Westbrook, Hart, McBride, and Clarkson might be too small and lacking shooting, particularly if Gershon Yabusele is playing as a small ball center. Additionally, head coach Mike Brown has rarely gone more than 9 players deep, suggesting a 10-man rotation is unlikely. Given all this, Westbrook may ultimately fit better elsewhere, potentially with a team like the Miami Heat. As for the Knicks, Deuce McBride as the backup guard may be sufficient, and adding another guard could be difficult without creating spacing and role conflicts. Ben Simmons remains an intriguing option because, at 6'10", he could operate as a point forward, handling the ball and facilitating while still contributing defensively. Meanwhile, Deuce McBride proved last season that he's a capable lead ball handler, averaging 25 minutes per game with 9.5 points, 2.5 rebounds, and 3 assists. He often gets more credit than he receives for his ability to control the offense. Adding Jordan Clarkson to the mix only strengthens the Knicks' backcourt. While Westbrook put up solid numbers as a starter, around 15 points, 6 rebounds, and 7 assists per game, shooting 50% from the field and 34% from 3, it's unlikely he would start in New York. Pairing him with Mitchell Robinson would also create role conflicts, especially if Karl Anthony Towns is in the rotation. Replicating the Jokic-style system isn't entirely feasible either, as Jokic is a rare three-point shooting big who does much more than just stretch the floor. In contrast, the Knicks can confidently rely on Jordan Clarkson as their backup point guard. He's fully capable of running the floor and managing the offense, addressing a critical need for the team. Speaking about joining New York, Clarkson said, "Being a Knick means you play for the city, show love, and embrace the role with pride. I'm ready for it all." Last season, Clarkson excelled off the bench for Utah, even though the Jazz struggled. In 26 minutes per game, he averaged 16 points, 3 rebounds, and 4 assists, shooting 41% from the field and 36% from three-point range, one of his better marks in recent seasons. He's a highly effective shot creator and draws fouls exceptionally well, particularly on drives where he utilizes either hand to get contact in the paint. This makes him a highly efficient player in drawing free throws, ranking in the 93rd percentile in that category. Clarkson's style and readiness make him a better fit for the Knicks than Westbrook, especially since he's already on the roster and prepared to contribute immediately. While he isn't an elite passer, paired with McBride and potentially Josh Hart off the bench, the Knicks would have multiple above-average playmakers on the floor. Hart, a versatile wing with exceptional passing instincts, further enhances the unit, despite occasional overthrows due to his strength. Even without Jalen Brunson on the floor, a lineup featuring Clarkson, McBride, and Hart could operate effectively as a cohesive 5-man group. The Knicks may not have a single elite playmaker, but they have several reliable contributors who can compensate collectively. Additionally, there's Tyler Kick, who last season averaged just 7 minutes, 2 points, and nearly 2 assists per game. His limited minutes affected his shooting, 33% from the field, 30% from three, but his passing was impressive. If Kick remains with the Knicks next season, which seems likely, he could serve as a situational playmaker, ready for spot minutes when needed. Overall, the Knicks' backcourt depth looks solid. Clarkson and McBride provide reliable ball handling, Hart adds versatility and passing, and Kick remains an emergency option. This mix gives New York flexibility while keeping the floor balanced, ensuring multiple contributors can run the offense without needing Westbrook to fill that role. I hope you've been enjoying the breakdown so far, because we're far from finished. There's still plenty to cover regarding Jordan Clarkson and what he brings to the Knicks roster. Last season, in his playoff appearances with Utah, Clarkson averaged 17 points per game across 24 games, while also contributing roughly 3 rebounds and 2 assists per contest. Those numbers alone highlight his scoring ability, but it's what he does efficiently that really stands out. He shot 45% from the field and 35% from three-point range in playoff action, while maintaining an impressive true shooting percentage of 57.8%. On top of that, his free throw shooting has consistently been among the league's best, which is crucial in high-pressure postseason situations. Clarkson isn't just a scorer, he's a dynamic playmaker. Advanced metrics, like those from Basketball Index, show that when looking at drives per 75 possessions in combination with passing versatility, Clarkson ranks impressively high. He's in the same tier as elite floor generals like Luka Doncic and Ja Morant, and even sits alongside James Harden when it comes to creating opportunities for teammates while aggressively attacking the rim. This demonstrates that Clarkson's ability to run an offense and make smart reads off the dribble is often undervalued. He can create shots not just for himself, but also for others, which is exactly what the Knicks need in a backup lead guard. What's particularly promising about Clarkson is his experience in high-stakes games. Having performed admirably in playoff scenarios, he has proven he can handle pressure moments and deliver when it matters most. His scoring efficiency, combined with his capacity to draw fouls and manipulate defenses, makes him a weapon in clutch situations. Defenders can't simply sag off him because he's capable both as a shooter and a facilitator, which opens driving lanes and creates opportunities for the entire offense. When you look at the Knicks bench unit, Clarkson is perfectly positioned to take on a leadership role. Alongside Deuce McBride and Josh Hart, he gives New York a versatile trio capable of handling multiple offensive schemes. McBride can serve as a secondary ball handler, while Hart adds another layer of versatility with his playmaking, defensive awareness, and ability to cover multiple positions. This trio ensures that even without Jalen Brunson on the floor, the Knicks can maintain a cohesive, high-functioning unit capable of spacing the floor, moving the ball efficiently, and exploiting mismatches. Beyond statistics, Clarkson brings a professional mindset and understanding of his role. He knows when to attack, when to facilitate, and how to adjust to the flow of the game. His combination of scoring ability, passing instincts, and free throw efficiency makes him not just a bench contributor, but a reliable second-unit floor general. For the Knicks, that's invaluable, especially during playoff runs when depth and execution off the bench can be the difference between advancing and falling short. Looking at the bigger picture, Clarkson's presence also complements the Knicks' roster flexibility. While discussions about potential additions like Russell Westbrook circulate, Clarkson already provides what the team needs: a capable lead guard who can create, score, and facilitate without requiring a complete overhaul of the lineup. His integration into the Knicks system feels seamless, and the team can rely on him to execute consistently while allowing starters to rest, without sacrificing offensive cohesion. In summary, Jordan Clarkson is shaping up to be one of the most important pieces for New York next season. He offers scoring, playmaking, experience, and versatility, all critical factors for both regular season success and deep playoff contention. He may not be a superstar, but he's the kind of floor general off the bench that every competitive team needs. So, I want to hear from you all. Which of the new Knicks are you most excited to see in action? How do you think Clarkson will perform as a lead guard? Are you intrigued by potential names like Russell Westbrook joining the squad? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'll make sure to engage and respond. And if you're enjoying this breakdown, don't forget to like the video, subscribe for more updates, and turn on notifications so you never miss a single analysis. The Knicks are evolving, and it's going to be an exciting season to watch. The New York Knicks are staying busy this offseason with roster adjustments. Reports indicate that the front office is preparing to hand out 3 two-way contracts, and one of the names being seriously considered is Summer League standout Dink Pate. Let's take a closer look at what the latest updates suggest about the team's plan. Although the Knicks entered the summer with limited cap flexibility and few draft assets, they still managed to strengthen their roster with smart acquisition. Now, the focus has shifted to how they will structure their developmental pieces. According to recent reporting, second-round pick Mohamed Diawara is expected to be one of the players offered a two-way spot, a move that has been rumored since the conclusion of Summer League. Another potential candidate is Kevin McCullough Jr., who could also return on a two-way deal. For him to earn a standard roster spot, New York would need to either use a veteran minimum slot or clear space via a trade, both of which seem unlikely at the moment. This leaves one more two-way position open, with names like Dink Pate and Ron Harper Jr. emerging as logical fits. There's also the real possibility of James Nnaji entering the conversation as the Knicks continue to evaluate their rookie and two-way contract options. If the organization opts to use the second-round rookie exception on another player, Nnaji could very well be considered for one of the remaining two-way openings. In that scenario, the roster alignment would likely look something like this: Diawara securing the rookie exception contract, McCullough occupying one of the two-way deals, and Pate and Nnaji effectively competing for the final spot. This competition not only incentivizes each player to maximize their performance, but also ensures that the Knicks are putting their most promising young talent in positions to prove themselves. Where Dink Pate truly stands out is his Summer League showing, which captured the attention of fans and front office personnel alike. Despite entering the league undrafted, Pate quickly demonstrated that he has the tools, mindset, and skill set of a player who might easily have heard his name called on draft night under different circumstances. His combination of size, versatility, scoring ability, and poise against high-level competition made him one of the most noticeable and memorable players on the Knicks' Summer League roster. Beyond just scoring, Pate showed glimpses of court vision, defensive awareness, and a willingness to compete in all phases of the game, traits that are critical for a two-way contract player who will need to adapt between G League and NBA-level competition. A two-way contract for Pate would provide him with the ideal bridge to develop while remaining closely tied to the main Knicks roster. He would get consistent playing time in Westchester to refine his skills, gain confidence, and learn the nuances of professional basketball, all while having the chance to step in for the NBA team when opportunities arise due to injury or rotation need. This pathway allows the Knicks to monitor his progress closely, provide targeted development, and potentially integrate him into the rotation in the near future, if he proves ready. Ultimately, the Pate versus Nnaji dynamic adds an extra layer of intrigue to the Knicks' roster-building strategy. It's a clear signal that the organization is not only focused on the present, but also on building a pipeline of young players capable of contributing immediately or developing into significant rotation pieces over time. Diawara, on the other hand, feels like a lock for New York in some form. His athleticism and energy in Las Vegas made him an obvious choice for the second-round rookie exception, which would give him a guaranteed path into the system. McCullough also raised eyebrows with his versatility. Long known as a defensive-minded guard, he proved in Summer League that he can rebound, make plays, and even generate offense when needed. Then there's the case of Nnaji. Earlier this month, reports surfaced that he informed Barcelona he would not be returning, opting instead to pursue his NBA career. Moves like that usually suggest some level of assurance that an opportunity in the league is waiting. If true, it makes sense that the Knicks could use their final two-way contract on him. Still, much of the excitement centers around Pate. He's raw, but he showed enough to justify serious investment. If he lands in Westchester on a two-way, his development could accelerate quickly, making him a potential sleeper for New York's long-term plan. At the end of the day, the Knicks are piecing together a collection of rookies and young prospects who not only add intrigue to the roster, but also provide multiple pathways for the organization to build sustained success. The goal is clear: find players who can either contribute meaningful minutes right away or steadily develop into reliable rotation pieces over the next few seasons. Whether it's Tidjane Diawara, bringing his length and defensive instincts, Kevin McCullough Jr., offering his versatility and toughness, Nnaji adding size and rebounding, or Pate showcasing his energy and scoring flashes, New York is signaling that it values these roster mechanisms as an avenue to maximize depth, maintain financial flexibility, and potentially uncover hidden gems. One important factor to keep in mind is the developmental stage of someone like Kevin McCullough Jr. His situation is unique because, in many ways, he still hasn't had a fair chance to truly go through the rhythm of a full rookie campaign. Even during his time with the G League last year, he joined later in the process, meaning he never fully acclimated to the pace, physicality, and consistency required at the professional level. That reality makes this upcoming year absolutely critical for him. A complete season offers him the opportunity to find his footing, develop chemistry with teammates, and adjust his game in a way that shows long-term potential. For McCullough, Westchester will be more than just a proving ground. It's a platform where he can redefine his trajectory. If he displays steady growth on both ends of the floor, builds confidence as a decision-maker, and shows the ability to impact games consistently, it's only a matter of time before the conversation about a call-up to the main roster becomes serious. And once that window opens, the Knicks will be in position to reward his progress with meaningful opportunities in Madison Square Garden. Of course, nothing in the NBA is guaranteed. Every prospect has to fight for minutes, prove themselves daily, and take advantage of every chance they're given. But history has shown that players who consistently put in the work and demonstrate readiness eventually earn their breakthrough. That's the message behind the Knicks' approach. By investing in development and giving young talent the tools to succeed, the organization increases its odds of finding valuable contributors who can either support a championship run or serve as key assets in future roster moves. The Knicks seem to be handling this stage of their roster building perfectly. They're investing time and resources into players like Mohamed Diawara, McCullough, Dink Pate, and possibly James Nnaji. Developing young talent isn't just about immediate depth. It's about planting seeds that can grow into long-term contributors. A few years down the line, these rookies could evolve into reliable bench pieces who provide value on cost-controlled contracts. That flexibility allows New York to continue chasing star talent while maintaining balance and depth, a formula every serious contender needs. And speaking of contender, it's worth looking at how the Knicks are being evaluated heading into next season. According to odds makers, New York is projected as one of the better teams in the league. They've even appeared in projections for squads capable of hitting 55 or more wins, and in some models, even 65+. Only elite teams make those lists, and it's telling that the Knicks are in that conversation at all. The breakdown looks like this. Oklahoma City currently leads the projections, followed by Cleveland, Houston, and then teams like New York, Denver, and Orlando. For the Knicks, the odds of reaching 55 wins are set at +112, which indicates that while Vegas doesn't see it as the most likely outcome, it's far from impossible. When you look at the odds for 65 wins, they jump all the way to $2,000, a clear sign that bookmakers don't expect that kind of historic regular season from New York. But here's the key takeaway. Being included in these discussions shows how much respect the Knicks have earned across the league. Odds makers don't place teams in this tier unless they have strong rosters, capable coaching, and front offices that are making smart, calculated moves. The Knicks check all of those boxes. They've spent the offseason positioning themselves as real contenders, not just for this year, but for the seasons ahead. This balance between building for today and investing in tomorrow is exactly why Leon Rose and his staff continue to inspire confidence. They're not chasing quick fixes or short-term splashes. Instead, they're ensuring the team remains competitive year after year by blending established talent with carefully developed prospects. When an organization takes this kind of long view, it shows they aren't just focused on surviving a season, they're building something sustainable. The Knicks have been proving that strategy works, and as the odds suggest, the basketball world is noticing. With the right mix of stars, depth, and youth development, New York looks prepared to compete at the highest level. It's now confirmed. We finally have clarity on the role of one of the Knicks' most intriguing young prospects, as reports from team insiders have shed light on head coach Mike Brown's early plans. Alongside this, there's also been renewed discussion about a familiar name to Knicks fans, former center Moses Brown, as the organization continues to explore ways to add more size and depth to the roster. Let's start with Ariel Hukporti, the German big man who is entering what technically counts as his second NBA season, although his journey to this point has been far from ordinary. At 23 years old, Hukporti is a bit older than most second-year players due to his unique path. Originally projected as a first-round pick in 2021, his career took a major detour when he ruptured his Achilles, forcing him to miss an entire year. After a long recovery and steady progress, he eventually re-entered the draft and was selected in 2024 by New York, with the final pick of the second round. Despite the low draft position, Hukporti quickly showed flashes that suggested he was much more valuable than where he was taken. His style of play has drawn comparisons to Isaiah Hartenstein. Both are left-handed, skilled passers from the high post, comfortable putting the ball on the floor, and capable of showing touch in the mid-range. Hukporti, in particular, has displayed promising post skill, often calling for the ball in summer league action and showing glimpses of a player who wants to be aggressive offensively. The Knicks clearly valued him highly, believing his talent was greater than his draft slot indicated. However, according to team insider James Edwards, the reality is that his role this season may be limited at the start. Edwards projected that while Hukporti could see some minutes, the main front court rotation is likely to be dominated by Karl Anthony Towns, Mitchell Robinson, Gershon Yabusele, and Josh Hart. Given Robinson's history of injuries, there might be occasional opportunities for Hukporti to step in, but Edwards emphasized that it's unlikely he'll be a consistent fixture in the regular rotation unless circumstances, like injuries or load management, open the door. Edwards also suggested that Mike Brown will probably stick with a 9-man rotation to begin the year. The expected core group includes Jalen Brunson, Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby, Karl Anthony Towns, Josh Hart, Mitchell Robinson, Deuce McBride, Jordan Clarkson, and Gershon Yabusele. While the Knicks do have some younger players worth monitoring, the coaching staff seems to prefer a tighter rotation, leaning on proven contributors. This leaves some questions about the backcourt depth. Edwards noted that McBride is better suited to play off the ball rather than as a true lead guard, which could push the Knicks to use their final roster spot on a veteran point guard. Landry Shamet has been mentioned as a potential target, and if signed, McBride would likely slide back into his more natural role. Still, McBride has shown he's capable of handling point guard duties in stretches, and his defensive impact makes him a reliable piece. There's also some intrigue around Tyler Kolek, who could carve out a role as a playmaking guard in Brown's system, though his scoring consistency and defense remain works in progress. If given opportunities, he could eventually prove himself as a useful contributor. As for Hukporti, much of his development last year took place in the G League, where his minutes were somewhat limited due to Moses Brown occupying the starting center role. This dynamic raises a new discussion, as Brown's name has resurfaced in connection with the Knicks' search for additional size in the front court. Before diving deeper into Moses Brown, it's worth circling back to Ariel Hukporti's rookie year production. His playing time was limited, but he still managed to average 2 points and 2 rebounds per game across 25 appearances, shooting an efficient 67% from the field. While those numbers don't jump off the page, they came in extremely short stints, sometimes just a few minutes here and there, which makes it hard for a young player to build rhythm or confidence. Still, in the handful of games where he did get extended minutes, Hookporty flashed real potential. His energy, rim presence, and physical tools suggested he could become a valuable rotation big with more consistent opportunity. The inconsistency in minutes was more of a short-term obstacle than a long-term concern. Entering the upcoming season, there's optimism that Hookporty could carve out a more stable role, particularly if the Knicks commit to giving him at least 5 to 10 minutes per game as a true backup center. Several observers have pointed out that this could help solidify the team's interior depth and ease the workload on Mitchell Robinson. One of the main comparisons in this discussion is Gershon Yabusele, who has been considered as a potential small ball 5. While Yabusele brings toughness and energy, his numbers suggest he's not as effective in the paint as a traditional center. Last season, he collected only about 12% of available rebounds and just over 1% of block opportunities when on the court, stats that are more aligned with a power forward. Hookporty, by contrast, posted around 13.5% rebounding and 4% in block percentage, making him a much more natural fit defensively at the center spot. Of course, small ball lineups often sacrifice rim protection and rebounding in exchange for pace and spacing, and Yabusele does bring value in those areas. But if New York wants a true big to anchor second-unit minutes, Hookporty's skill set clearly makes more sense. That brings us to another important name, Moses Brown. The 7'2" center has been on the radar of Knicks fans for some time and remains a legitimate option if the team feels Hookporty isn't quite ready to handle consistent backup duties. Brown dominated in the G League last season, averaging an eye-popping 18 points and 17 rebounds per game. His size, energy, and knack for offensive rebounding made him a force around the rim, and his lob-catching ability gave guards an easy target in pick-and-roll action. Brown even earned brief NBA stints with the Indiana Pacers and Dallas Mavericks. Though his minutes were limited in Indiana, he made an impact in Dallas, averaging 12 points and 8 rebounds across 4 games. In 2 of those outings, he looked nearly unstoppable, putting up double-doubles and shooting over 70% from the field. His efficiency was remarkable, finishing the season with a true shooting percentage of 74%, while also converting 83% of his limited free throw attempts. The Mavericks reportedly wanted to keep him, but salary cap restrictions prevented them from signing him to a longer-term deal. As a result, Brown returned to the G League and finished the year with the Westchester Knicks, where he continued to produce at a high level. Now a free agent once again, he remains closely tied to New York's plan. If he doesn't land a full-time NBA contract elsewhere, Brown is expected to start the season as the anchor of Westchester's front court, keeping him firmly within the Knicks' orbit as a call-up option. Moses Brown remains one of those intriguing cases of players who live on the edge between the NBA and the G League. He has bounced around multiple franchises, flashed genuine impact when given opportunities, but has never managed to establish himself as a permanent fixture in a rotation. His current situation with the Knicks reflects that same pattern. He'll be present at training camp, he'll get chances to showcase his game, but he's no longer eligible for a two-way contract due to his years of NBA service. That means the only way he could crack the main roster would be through a standard deal, which, in turn, would require the Knicks to make cuts or explore trades to open up space. Brown's journey helps explain this predicament. He had encouraging stretches with the Oklahoma City Thunder, playing in more than 40 games and showing real potential as a rim protector and rebounder. He also had brief stints in Portland and Dallas, where he flashed the same skill set, but never found long-term stability. Curiously, despite his time with the Westchester Knicks, Brown has never suited up for the New York Knicks in a regular season game. That fact alone adds a layer of narrative interest. Born and raised in New York, a product of Malloy High School, where he played alongside Cole Anthony, and later a standout at UCLA, Brown carrying the Knicks jersey at Madison Square Garden would resonate deeply with the fan base. The challenge, however, is strictly logistical. To bring him aboard, the Knicks would need to maneuver within their roster, potentially moving on from a younger player who hasn't carved out a consistent role yet. One example that has been floated is Tyler Kolek. If he were moved in a trade, the Knicks would gain flexibility to sign 2 veterans on minimum deal. Brown could then be one of those additions, alongside other names being speculated, such as Malcolm Brogdon, Ben Simmons, or Landry Shamet. While not the kind of headline-grabbing signing that shifts national narratives, adding Brown would be a strategic move, bolstering the team's depth at center and providing valuable size and rebounding off the bench. The appeal lies in Brown's production whenever he gets consistent minutes. He's not a stretch big who spaces the floor, nor a shot creator who reshapes an offense, but what he does bring is tangible, rebounding, rim presence, efficient finishing around the basket, and the kind of physicality that stabilizes second-unit lineups. Against opposing bench units, that can be the difference between holding momentum or surrendering it. If no contract materializes, the likeliest outcome is that Brown returns to the Westchester Knicks, where he excelled last season. That, however, wouldn't close the book on him. Staying within the organization means he remains on the radar for a potential call-up, whether due to injuries, roster adjustments, or an opening created mid-season. Training camp will also serve as his platform to make an impression directly on Tom Thibodeau and the Knicks coaching staff. Alongside Brown, several other young names are expected to see meaningful time with Westchester, including Mohamed Diawara, James Nagy, and Dink Pate, all prospects in need of steady minutes to accelerate their development. The Knicks' strategy appears clear. Use the G League not only as a developmental ground, but as a reservoir of talent ready to be plugged into the main roster when the opportunity presents itself. For Brown in particular, his persistence and consistent production at the developmental level justify the fan anticipation of finally seeing him on the Garden floor. Whether that chance comes at the start of the season or later down the line will depend on how the front office manages roster flexibility. What's certain is that Moses Brown remains firmly in the conversation and could yet play a meaningful role for the Knicks in 2025. Nobody really saw this coming for the New York Knicks. With just one roster spot left to fill in free agency, a new name has suddenly emerged, someone who hadn't been widely linked to the team until now. While speculation about familiar faces from recent years continued, and while chatter around other veterans hasn't completely faded, the focus has started to shift in a new and intriguing direction. On SportsCenter, the panel broke down all the moving parts, and it's worth going through exactly what they discussed. Even though it's mid-August and most of the major free agency dominoes have already fallen, the Knicks still have business to handle. They have 2 contracts left to distribute, one expected to go to a rookie minimum deal, and another for the veteran minimum. While the rookie slot has gone quiet, all eyes are on the veteran opening. And that's where the buzz around Charles Bassey comes in. Bassey is attracting attention for good reason. The young big man brings size, rim protection, and rebounding. Exactly the type of traits the Knicks have been targeting to complement Jalen Brunson, Mikal Bridges, and Julius Randle. At 6'2", with a strong frame, he can slot in at the 5, provide a vertical threat in the pick and roll, and hold his own defensively in the paint. The panel noted that Bassey's ability to anchor bench units without needing the ball in his hands makes him particularly appealing for a team still looking to solidify depth heading into the regular season. The conversation also touched on Bassey's recent track record. Last season, before his injury, he averaged strong per-minute numbers, showcasing elite rebounding instincts and efficient finishing around the rim. His ability to thrive in both up-tempo lineups and half-court sets adds valuable flexibility, especially with the Knicks' current rotation of Karl Anthony Towns, Mitchell Robinson, and Ariel Hukporti. If Mike Brown chooses to stagger minutes between Towns and Robinson, Bassey could step in seamlessly, providing energy, rim protection, and rebounding while keeping the lineup balanced. Another factor discussed on SportsCenter was the way Bassey could alleviate pressure on the second unit. While the Knicks can experiment with small ball lineups or slide Gershon Yabusele to center in stretches, having a true rim protector like Bassey offers more stability, especially given Robinson's history with injuries. In scenarios where Towns or Robinson need rest, Or if the Knicks want to emphasize defense and rebounding with their bench, Bassey's presence could be invaluable. The panel also speculated on potential rotations. Bassey wouldn't necessarily need to start, but coming off the bench, he could give the Knicks a reliable interior presence and allow other players more breathing room. Ariel Hukporti, still young but showing promise, could benefit from this depth, learning while taking on limited high-leverage minutes. Meanwhile, Yabusele might slide to a small ball 5 in certain situations, giving Mike Brown multiple ways to attack opponents. The Knicks' roster construction and Brown's rotation strategies already give them a rare level of flexibility, and adding Bassey would only enhance that. In Sacramento, we saw Brown successfully deploy Domantas Sabonis in creative ways, and the comparison was clear. Just as Sabonis gave the Kings a physical interior presence while keeping the offense flowing, Bassey could provide the Knicks with that same kind of complementary value. The discussion then shifted to Bassey's potential role as a situational anchor. His rim protection, rebounding, and efficiency around the basket give New York a different kind of option to fill their final roster spot. Last season, his flashes showed that he could be a difference-maker in the right system, and Brown's track record with bigs suggests that Bassey could be integrated without much issue. His size, athleticism, and defensive awareness would allow the Knicks to use him in different lineups without sacrificing tempo or spacing. Another factor discussed was his potential role off the bench. While the Knicks could continue experimenting with Hukporti or Yabusele at the 4 or 5, adding Bassey provides a more polished NBA-ready option in stretches where Towns or Robinson need rest. Or if the Knicks want to run a lineup with more defense and rim protection around Brunson and Bridges, Bassey could step in seamlessly, keeping the team stable on both ends. The panel also highlighted Charles Bassey's ability to hold defensive integrity even in high-pressure situations. Over his young career, he's shown flashes of being a timely rim protector, a relentless rebounder, and an efficient finisher in transition. These attributes could translate well to the Knicks' rotation, providing depth, physicality, and positional stability, all qualities that make him an intriguing candidate for a veteran minimum signing. Finally, the conversation circled back to New York's broader strategy. The Knicks have multiple paths to finalize their roster. They could trust younger pieces like Hukporti and Yabusele in creative lineups, or they could bring in Bassey to provide rebounding, rim protection, and energy off the bench. This flexibility allows Mike Brown to experiment while maintaining consistency, ensuring the team can adapt to injuries, matchups, or small ball rotations throughout a long NBA season. Ultimately, Bassey represents a unique blend of size, athleticism, and defensive upside, a player who can immediately impact the rotation while also offering room for growth. For a team still searching for the final piece to complement Towns, Robinson, and the backcourt duo of Brunson and McBride, Bassey checks a lot of boxes. And while nothing is official yet, his name being linked to the Knicks suggests that the front office sees real value in what he could bring to New York's championship push. Much of what Bassey can do on the floor revolves around anchoring the paint. He can play the traditional center role, slide into small ball lineups when Robinson rests, and even switch defensively onto forwards if needed, giving Mike Brown multiple ways to configure rotation. His combination of strength, rim protection, and rebounding allows the Knicks to experiment with lineups without losing their defensive backbone. In many ways, adding Bassey could address the same roster needs that the Knicks have been targeting with other bigs, but with a younger, higher-energy profile. Unlike some of the other options under consideration, Bassey brings a clear defensive identity, the ability to clean the glass, and reliable efficiency around the basket. That makes him a player who could contribute immediately in meaningful stretches, especially against teams with size. The strategic decision for New York seems to be clear. Prioritize a player who can impact the interior defensively and provide stability rather than just another limited rotational piece. The discussion then turned to alternative options, like Thomas Bryant or other backup centers. Bryant offers scoring touch and experience, but he doesn't provide the same defensive ceiling or athletic presence that Bassey brings. While Bryant could stabilize the bench offensively, Bassey's ability to rim, protect, and rebound at a high level opens up more ways for Mike Brown to balance the rotation. Another key point highlighted by the panel was Bassey's developmental trajectory. Even in limited minutes, he has shown improved decision-making, defensive awareness, and a knack for making impact plays without forcing the offense, all qualities that could translate directly into the Knicks' rotation. His presence would allow Brown to rotate lineups fluidly, pairing him with Towns, Robinson, or even small ball unit, while maintaining defensive stability and maximizing rebounding. Ultimately, the question for Knicks fans becomes, should New York commit to adding Bassey as their final veteran minimum signing, prioritizing a defensive-minded big who can contribute right away? Or should they consider other, more offensive-focused options like Bryant for depth at the 5? The consensus among analysts seemed to lean toward Bassey, given his combination of size, defensive instincts, rebounding, and potential to fit seamlessly into multiple lineup configurations. As free agency continues, this decision could define the Knicks' interior depth and rotation for the upcoming season. A player like Bassey not only fills a roster spot, but also provides strategic insurance for playoff matchups, rim protection in high-leverage moments, and lineup experimentation for Mike Brown. For fans, it's exciting to see a name like his suddenly linked to New York, a player who could immediately impact the defense and complement the Stars in a meaningful way. So, Knicks fans, what do you think? Should the team finalize the signing of Charles Bassey, giving Mike Brown a defensive anchor to stabilize multiple rotations, or explore other options for the final roster spot? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Make sure to like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications to stay updated on every Knicks move this offseason. Thanks for watching, and as always, go Knicks! We have an important update to share. An NBA insider has highlighted Miles McBride as a player to keep an eye on for a potential trade next season, and the reasoning might surprise you. Today, we're going to break down all the latest information surrounding this. If you enjoy staying updated on NBA news, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss anything. Now, let's dive in. Talk of a Miles McBride trade is starting to circulate. While this offseason has been filled with various topics, trades haven't been a major focus for the New York Knicks, mainly because their primary trade target has been Giannis Antetokounmpo, who, as of now, isn't available. However, these latest reports suggest that trades might become relevant again, with McBride potentially on the move next season. NBA insider Sam Amo from HoopsWire shared some insights into the situation. According to Amo, one roster adjustment the Knicks could consider is a trade, and Miles McBride is emerging as a possible candidate. The reasoning? The Knicks recently added Jordan Clarkson in free agency, which could make McBride's role less certain. Amo notes that McBride is a solid player, but could find himself squeezed for minutes, especially now with Clarkson in the mix. This raises a crucial question for next season. What exactly will McBride's role be off the bench? With the Knicks still planning to add a veteran guard in the final roster spot, the competition for minutes at the guard position could intensify even further. James L. Edwards of The Athletic provided additional context regarding McBride's potential responsibilities. Edwards points out that McBride functions more effectively as an off-ball guard, rather than a traditional point guard. Many fans also view him as more of a two-guard. This creates a dilemma. If the Knicks do not bring in another guard with solid ball-handling skills, McBride might be pressed into filling the backup point guard role, even though it isn't his natural position. Edwards continues by noting that if the Knicks choose to use their remaining veteran minimum slot on someone like Landry Shamet, which seems plausible, McBride could end up serving as the team's backup point guard off the bench next season. While this isn't a terrible role, it isn't his ideal position either. And if this is the only spot available for him, it helps explain why a trade could start to make sense. That said, it's important to emphasize that the Knicks are unlikely to make a trade just for the sake of it. McBride isn't being considered expendable solely because of his position on the roster. With the current roster construction, Jordan Clarkson seems the most logical option to back up Jalen Brunson. However, if McBride demonstrates his ability during training camp and preseason, he could still secure meaningful minutes. In my view, the Knicks should hold on to their assets and wait for a player they truly want to become available, rather than moving anyone prematurely. Right now, McBride remains a valuable piece, and trading him without a clear target wouldn't be necessary. At this stage, the Knicks' primary objective continues to revolve around Giannis Antetokounmpo. He remains the centerpiece of any major trade discussions, and, realistically, no other player currently on the roster would likely be considered expendable for a significant deal, at least not unless an extraordinary opportunity suddenly presents itself. Under the guidance of Leon Rose, the Knicks operate with a very clear philosophy. They do not make moves simply for the sake of making moves. Each transaction is deliberate, with the goal of either improving the current roster, gaining additional flexibility for future acquisitions, or positioning themselves to land a truly impactful player who can elevate the team's championship prospects. This disciplined approach ensures that any trade, when it occurs, is strategic and purposeful, rather than reactionary. That said, Miles McBride remains a name that could surface in trade conversation, albeit under very specific circumstances. His unique combination of youth, skill set, and contract terms makes him an attractive option for teams looking to acquire a dependable, developing guard without taking on excessive financial risk. McBride's versatility, capable of contributing as both an off-ball guard and, when needed, in a secondary ball-handling role, adds to his appeal, particularly for teams in need of depth in the backcourt. From the Knicks' perspective, this means that while he is not actively being shopped around, keeping him on the radar for potential trades is a prudent move. It's important to note that the timing of a trade is a critical factor. The likelihood of McBride being moved immediately is relatively low, as the current roster is already positioned to contend at a high level. However, the NBA landscape can shift rapidly. Injuries, unexpected performances, or the sudden availability of a player who could dramatically improve the Knicks' title, chances could all create a scenario where McBride becomes part of a deal. The front office must remain adaptable, weighing offers carefully and only engaging in negotiations that provide clear and tangible benefits to the team. Moreover, McBride's profile makes him uniquely suited as a tradable asset without severely impacting the team's core. While he has shown promise, his role could be limited in a crowded guard rotation, especially with recent additions like Jordan Clarkson. This combination of potential and flexibility means the Knicks can explore options without risking the stability of their roster. In essence, McBride's trade value exists not because the team wants to move him, but because his skill set, contract, and developmental trajectory make him a highly marketable asset if the right deal presents itself. In short, while the Knicks remain focused on building around Giannis as the ultimate prize, the organization is wisely keeping all possibilities open. Miles McBride sits at the intersection of strategic flexibility and roster optimization. He may remain a core rotational player for the upcoming season, or, under the right circumstances, he could become the centerpiece of a trade that elevates the team even further. The key takeaway is that every move is calculated. Nothing is impulsive, and McBride's potential trade status reflects the team's broader philosophy of measured, high-impact decision-making. However, as of now, there's no clear trade scenario that would necessitate moving McBride. The Knicks don't need an immediate shakeup. Their current roster is strong, and as things stand, New York is viewed as one of the favorites to contend for the NBA Finals. According to the latest odds from FanDuel, OKC leads at plus 240, followed by the Cleveland Cavaliers at plus 700, slightly up from 800 previously. The Knicks, along with the Denver Nuggets and Houston Rockets, are now all listed at 850, while the Orlando Magic are considered long shots at 500. These odds indicate that, even without making additional moves, the Knicks are positioned as a top-tier team capable of reaching the finals and competing for a championship. From that perspective, why make a trade at all? There's simply no pressing need. Even though some analysts like Sam Amo suggest that McBride could become expendable with Jordan Clarkson now on the roster, it's far from guaranteed. The only scenario that would realistically push a trade is if McBride struggles to make an impact during the season, sees his role diminished, and Clarkson effectively takes over as the primary guard off the bench. Only in that situation would a mid-season trade become a serious consideration. Trading Miles McBride prematurely could have significant consequences for the Knicks' long-term plan. Moving him too soon may limit the team's ability to execute a larger, more impactful trade in the future. A trade that could potentially bring in a game-changing player who elevates the roster to championship contention. The organization clearly has a specific target in mind, a player who could transform the team's dynamics, and sacrificing valuable assets, including McBride, before that opportunity becomes available, would reduce their strategic flexibility. Every piece on the roster holds value, not just in terms of on-court contribution, but also as leverage for future deals, and McBride is no exception. For now, the Knicks' strategy is straightforward. Retain McBride along with other key assets, maximize the potential of the current roster, and only entertain trades that present a clear, tangible benefit in terms of improving the team's championship odds. This approach ensures that the team maintains control over its direction, avoids unnecessary risks, and preserves the ability to act decisively when the right opportunity arises. Holding on to McBride allows the front office to evaluate the upcoming season's developments, including player performance, injuries, and other market dynamics, before making any major moves. It's also worth emphasizing that McBride's role, while potentially limited at times, still adds depth and flexibility to the Knicks' rotation. His presence ensures that the team can withstand the rigors of a long season without compromising quality at the guard position. By keeping him, the Knicks retain a reliable option off the bench, while maintaining the ability to structure trades around him if and when a highly advantageous scenario presents itself. In short, while monitoring trade opportunities is always prudent in the NBA, the probability of McBride being moved next season is relatively low. The Knicks are committed to carefully strengthening the roster, safeguarding their assets, and prioritizing trades that have a substantial positive impact, rather than making moves for the sake of activity. This measured, disciplined approach reflects a larger organizational philosophy. Build with patience, maintain flexibility, and only make calculated decisions that push the team closer to a championship. So here's how it went down earlier today on First Take, and this one had the Knicks fan base buzzing. The conversation kicked off with the panel diving straight into the team's free agency board, pointing out that New York is actively evaluating multiple wings right now. Among the names being floated, Matisse Thybulle. Yes, the same Thybulle who carved out a reputation as one of the league's elite perimeter defenders and just wrapped up a solid stint in Portland. But here's the real headline. We just got a significant update on who could potentially fill that final forward slot off the bench next season. And trust me, the way it was broken down on the show, you could feel how much weight this decision carries for the front office. The discussion quickly shifted to the facts. New York has exactly one open roster spot remaining, and it's likely going to a veteran on a minimum deal. Thybulle is at the center of this conversation, with the panel making it clear that, like it or not, the Knicks are currently viewed as one of the frontrunners to land him. That doesn't mean it's a done deal, though. Thybulle could still choose to stay in Portland or find a bigger role elsewhere, and if that happens, the Knicks' front office would need to pivot fast. From there, First Take analysts dove deeper into what that strategic pivot might actually look like for New York. According to fresh reporting from James L. Edwards of The Athletic, the lingering question of who's taking those key wing minutes behind Josh Hart and Mikal Bridges remains not just unanswered, but wide open for interpretation. Edwards emphasized that, in his view, the answer simply isn't on the roster at this moment. While he acknowledged Jacob Toppin's upside, praising his energy, athleticism, and willingness to defend, Edwards expressed skepticism that the Knicks would be willing to hand such a crucial rotation role to an unproven young player with no meaningful playoff reps, especially when the team is entering the season with championship-level expectation and minimal margin for error. He noted that depth at the wing in this environment isn't just about soaking up minutes, it's about taking defensive assignments against elite scorers, spacing the floor when Brunson and Bridges sit, and ensuring there's no collapse in tempo or intensity against second unit. That's when the conversation naturally shifted to Miles "Deuce" McBride, a player who has consistently earned praise for his defensive tenacity and unshakable mentality. Edwards argued that McBride's skill set is at its best when he's deployed as an off-ball guard, where his quick hands, defensive instincts, and spot-up shooting ability can truly shine without the added responsibility of defending bigger forward. However, he didn't completely shut down the idea of McBride absorbing some wing minutes if the Knicks opt to fill the position internally. The panel wrestled with that possibility. Some analysts pointed out that McBride's versatility, improved decision-making, and steady growth suggest he could surprise people if given an expanded role. Others, however, cautioned that pushing him into heavy wing minutes could blunt his strengths and leave the team exposed against taller matchups. The debate underscored the tension between banking on internal development and seeking outside help, a decision that could quietly become one of the defining factors in the Knicks' season. Now, looping back to the free agent market, Edwards named several wings worth monitoring if Thibault chooses another team. Derek Jones Jr., Torrey Craig, and Kelly Oubre Jr. were all mentioned as legitimate options. And here's where chemistry became part of the conversation. Craig has shared locker rooms with several Knicks players in Team USA settings, and Oubre offers instant offense, while Jones brings elite athleticism and switchable defense. While none match Thibault's specific skill set as a lockdown perimeter specialist, each provides a different wrinkle that could fit what Mike Brown is building. The First Take crew highlighted that Thibault's ability to shut down opposing scorers, force turnover, and thrive in high-intensity defensive schemes was exactly the kind of profile New York has been chasing. At the same time, Jones's versatility and Oubre's scoring punch were seen as strong alternatives. So, if Thibault passes on the Knicks and maybe stays in Portland, the expectation is that New York would quickly shift gears toward one of those other names. For now, though, it's a waiting game. As the panel bluntly put it, everything stopped until Matisse Thybulle decides. Multiple teams are circling, but New York clearly views him as a priority target, holding their next moves until his future is settled. Once that domino falls, the market for other free agents will open up, and the Knicks will either have Thybulle in their wing rotation, or they'll be hunting for their next best option. And that brought the conversation right back to McBride. Edwards's point stuck in the air. Could Deuce really slide into that secondary wing role and thrive against bigger matchups? Some at the table said they'd be surprised. Others weren't so sure. But one thing was unanimous. Whatever route the Knicks take, it's going to reveal a lot about how confident they are in their current depth at the forward spots, and just how aggressive they're willing to be to keep pace in an increasingly competitive Eastern Conference. It's possible that Deuce has some untapped versatility we haven't fully seen yet, but it's just as possible that he doesn't. If Mike Brown wants to experiment with him in spot minutes at the 3, I'm fine with that. Let's see how it works. Maybe Deuce surprises us and does well there. If it doesn't work, like many of us expect, then you make an adjustment. Maybe you lean more on Josh Hart's flexibility. Or maybe, as James Edwards suggested in his article, the Knicks haven't even signed their wing depth piece yet. That player could end up being Thybulle, Derek Jones Jr., or maybe even Torrey Craig. At this point, we have no idea exactly where the Knicks stand. We know Thybulle is on the radar, along with a couple of other names, but beyond that, the picture isn't clear. What I do know for certain is that Kevin Love is absolutely not part of that picture, and probably never was. Let's put that rumor to rest. Thanks to Brett Siegel, an NBA insider at Clutchpoint, we can. According to him, and as shared by NBA Central, word around the league is that Love wants to end up in Los Angeles. Yes, There were whispers about New York, but there's no real interest from the Knicks. And for that, thank you, Leon Rose. If the Knicks wanted a stretch forward, Chris Boucher was sitting there for weeks before signing with Boston. Clearly, that wasn't the direction they wanted to go. So Kevin Love to the Knicks? Never happening. If he's headed anywhere, it's probably to the Lakers. And good luck to him, if that's the case. Back to the Knicks. Whoever they sign to fill that final roster spot, it doesn't change the bigger picture. This team, as currently constructed, is a legitimate contender. Every move in free agency, every trade over the past few seasons has been building toward this moment. The Knicks are one of the favorites to win the championship next season, and the odds reflect that. Our channel sponsor FanDuel has the Knicks at 8,000 $8,000 to make the playoffs, with the no option sitting at +400. In other words, don't bet against them. They're not just favored to make the playoffs, they're considered a threat to win it all. That's because of the roster, the off-season additions, the new head coach, and the all-stars leading this team. The pieces are in place to be a force in the Eastern Conference, to make a finals run, and maybe, with the right mix of luck, coaching, and chemistry, to bring a title back to New York. That chemistry part is huge. If the starters and bench can embrace their roles, sacrifice for one another, and keep the bigger goal in mind, the Knicks can be one of the league's very best teams. They've got the roster, the coach, and the belief. The odds makers see it, the league sees it, and the players themselves know it. The pressure will be there. Everyone expects this team to reach the final. Not every player can handle that, but under Mike Brown, the Knicks seem ready to embrace it. From what we're hearing, there's excitement in the locker room. Excitement to play for Mike Brown. Excitement for the challenge. Excitement to go all the way. I'm hyped for next season and can't wait for it to start. How about you? What do you think about the possibility of the Knicks adding Derek Jones Jr. or Torrey Craig? If Matisse Thybulle is off the table, drop your thoughts in the comments, because I'd love to hear from you. That's it for this episode. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed it, hit the like button, leave a comment, and don't forget to subscribe. Until next time, Knicks fans, take care of yourselves, your families, and each other. Peace. A significant breakthrough appears to be on the horizon for New York Knicks center Mitchell Robinson, as new head coach Mike Brown is preparing to utilize him in a completely different role. At the same time, questions continue to circle around team president Leon Rose and what direction he plans to take with Robinson, who is entering the final year of his contract. With his name often tied to trade speculation and his future uncertain, Robinson now looks set for what many expect could be the best season of his career, thanks to adjustments in how he will be deployed on the court. Robinson's value to the Knicks has never really been in question. While his numbers don't always capture his impact, the 7-year veteran has consistently shown his importance since the team drafted him. He is now the lone remaining player from the roster during the franchise's most difficult years, and the only one still on board from the 2021 playoff team. Although he was sidelined with injury during that postseason series against the Hawks, Robinson is the last player left from that group. Now, once again, he prepares for another campaign in New York, the only team he has ever played for. Loved by fans and considered a core piece by many, Robinson's situation is further complicated by his expiring contract, currently set at $12 million this season, and discussions about whether he should receive a significant raise moving forward. What is clear, however, is that Robinson is gearing up for a transformation in his game. Known in past summers for posting playful workout clips of deep jump shots, this offseason has been different. Instead of gimmicks, Robinson has been showcasing serious development, focusing on scoring moves in the post, soft finishes, floaters, and improved ball handling. His training sessions have also highlighted progress at the free throw line, historically his biggest weakness. Alongside this, his body transformation has been noticeable, leaner and lighter than in previous years, with an eye toward rediscovering the mobility he had earlier in his career, which may also help with durability. Despite only appearing in 17 games last season due to a long-term injury, Robinson still flashed his trademark efficiency. Playing about 17 minutes per contest, he posted a 66% field goal percentage, right in line with his career average, though his true shooting numbers dipped slightly. Even in limited action, his offensive rebounding dominance stood out. 3.1 offensive boards per game in those minutes, which translates to around 7 per 36 minutes. That consistency on the glass has made him one of the league's best at creating second-chance opportunities throughout his career. With a clean bill of health, a trimmed-down physique, and a redefined role under a new coach, Robinson is entering the upcoming season with both pressure and opportunity. His contract situation and history with injuries make his future a topic of debate, but his talent and potential impact remain undeniable. Mitchell Robinson's dominance on the glass has become almost routine, but it's still incredible to process just how effective he is. Averaging the equivalent of 7 offensive rebounds per 36 minutes is no small feat. That's production few players in NBA history can match. Year after year, Robinson has solidified himself as the premier offensive rebounder in the league, and the postseason only reinforced that reputation. During the playoffs, he put up 7 rebounds and 5 points a night, with nearly 4 of those boards coming on the offensive end. His knack for creating second-chance opportunities has long outweighed his defensive rebounding numbers, which is more a reflection of New York's scheme and emphasis on crashing the boards than any flaw in his game. Of course, his free throw shooting remained a glaring weakness, just 39.3% in the postseason. But he has made it clear he's putting serious work into improving at the line. Even so, his defensive presence more than made up for it. Robinson averaged a block and a steal per game, while showcasing the kind of switchability that few big men possess. In the series against the Celtics, he produced one of the most memorable defensive sequences of the entire playoffs, seamlessly rotating across multiple players, shutting down options, and finally stripping Jaylen Brown clean for a turnover that electrified Madison Square Garden. Plays like that are reminders of how rare his defensive skill set is, and why his absence in past years due to injuries has been so deeply felt. The upcoming season offers something different. Robinson finally enters training camp fully healthy for the first time in years. Combined with his expanded offensive focus in the post and a new coach in Mike Brown, who is widely regarded as an offensive strategist, there's plenty of intrigue around how his role could evolve. Analyst Chris Herring recently noted that Brown faces several key questions: whether he'll adjust the starting lineup, which was consistently outscored late last season and into the playoffs, and how he'll address the defensive shortcomings that emerged when opponents targeted Jalen Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns. Robinson's presence, both as a rim protector and as a rebounder, might be the key to solving both problems. Evidence of that came in the postseason. Though he started the year rehabbing, Robinson worked his way back and eventually cracked the starting 5 in the conference finals against the Pacers. At times, he looked like New York's most valuable player, anchoring the defense with his rim protection and providing energy that swung momentum. Still, the advanced numbers show the challenge. When Robinson shared the court with Brunson and Towns, the Knicks surrendered a staggering 117 points per 100 possessions. That reality means Brown will have to carefully manage rotations and Robinson's minutes, especially given his history of injuries. Even with those caveats, expectations around New York are sky-high. Oddsmakers currently place the Knicks tied with Cleveland for the third-best odds to win the 2025-26 NBA title. A surreal sentence for fans who lived through the franchise's leaner years. For many, the thought of the Knicks actually lifting the Larry O'Brien trophy still feels dreamlike, the kind of scenario that might leave fans fainting in disbelief before celebrating in the streets. Through all of this, Mitchell Robinson stands as a symbol of perseverance and stability. Despite setbacks, his impact when he's on the floor is undeniable. In fact, in that same Celtics series, the Knicks posted an eye-popping pleasant 18.1 net rating with him in the game compared to when he sat. For a team that has rebuilt its identity, Robinson remains the constant, a defensive anchor, a rebounding force, and a player whose ceiling might just be higher than we've seen so far. When Mitchell Robinson is on the floor, the Knicks look like a completely different team. The advanced numbers tell the story clearly. When he sits, New York's defense collapses. posting a net rating around 12. But when he plays, so many of those defensive issues suddenly disappear. That's the impact of having an elite rim protector who not only defends his man, but also covers for the weaknesses of his teammate. And let's be real, with Jalen Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns as your offensive cornerstones, defense is always going to be a concern. Neither of them is a stopper on that end. That's why Robinson's value skyrockets. We've seen it time and again, even in the highlight clip against Boston. When Robinson rotated to Jaylen Brown, Towns was technically the player closest to the rim. But instead of waiting, Robinson literally pushed Towns back, saying without words, "This is my territory. I've got this." That confidence, that ownership of the defensive end is what makes him arguably the Knicks' most important defender. Now, it's fair to acknowledge OG Anunoby here. OG is phenomenal and deserved an all-defense nod last season. The fact that he didn't get it is laughable. Still, when you break it down, Robinson's combination of rim protection, rebounding, and switchability gives New York a defensive anchor unlike anything else on the roster. His presence is non-negotiable if this team wants to reach the final. The Knicks know this, too. If they don't add another high-level center, Robinson becomes even more central to their success. There has been chatter about experimenting with Ben Simmons at the 5, but the likelier scenario is a rotation where Robinson starts and younger bigs like Ariel Hukporti step into backup minutes. Hukporti, fresh off a strong G-League campaign, has drawn comparisons to Isaiah Hartenstein, not just because of the jersey number or the German background, but because of the way he played. He's comfortable handling the ball, can hit floaters, sets hard screens, and isn't afraid to attack the basket. Fans will remember his poster dunk attempt on Evan Mobley that was controversially waved off. One of those, "this guy might be for real" moments. If Hukporti develops as expected, he'll give Robinson some relief during the long grind of the season. Gershon Yabusele might also see time at center, having averaged 11 points and 5 rebounds last season. The Knicks have options, but none of them replace Robinson's singular impact, which is why, if he stays healthy, this could be the best year of his career. The fit with new head coach Mike Brown could be seamless. Brown is known for his offensive creativity, but he also demands discipline and effort defensively. Robinson's role will be clear: anchor the defense, dominate the glass, and fuel transition opportunity. That last part is key. Before Tom Thibodeau slowed everything down, Robinson was excellent at running the floor, turning defensive stops into fast break finishes. Expect more of that in 2025 to 26. And of course, he'll keep doing what he does best under the rim, grabbing offensive rebounds, finishing lobs, and punishing defenses with putbacks. What sets this season apart, though, is Robinson's mindset. By all accounts, he is more motivated than ever. For the first time in years, he had a fully healthy offseason, and he took the playoff loss to Indiana personally. His Instagram post after the elimination was raw and honest. "I know it's not the end of the world. I've been in this league for 7 years, through the ups and downs, fighting injuries, making big jumps. But this one feels different. I know damn well I could have done more. Made free throws, locked guys down, taken care of my body, and studied the game. This one's going to sting for a while." That's not just frustration. That's hunger. That's a player looking inward, ready to hold himself accountable. And when a player with Robinson's natural gifts pairs that kind of mindset with health and opportunity, the results can be scary for the rest of the league. For fans, there's also a deep emotional connection here. Robinson has been through it all with this team. The rebuilds, the injuries, the near breakthroughs. To see him now, entering what could be the prime of his career, feels special. He's not just another player, he's a symbol of resilience. Many fans, myself included, were most upset after the playoff exit, not because of the loss itself, but because it left Mitchell Robinson heartbroken. And when he's locked in like this, the league better take notice. So here we are, a new season, new expectations, and a Knicks team that has realistic championship aspirations. The odds say they're among the top contenders, but if they're going to get there, Mitchell Robinson's fingerprints will be all over it. He doesn't need to score 20 a night. He doesn't need to stretch the floor. He just needs to be himself. The blackness monster, the rim protector, the rebound machine, the energy that flips games. Now I want to hear from you. What are your predictions for Mitchell Robinson this year? Is he starting? Coming off the bench? How many points, rebounds, and blocks do you see him averaging? Drop your takes in the comments. I'll be diving in and responding to as many as possible. One thing is for sure, Mitchell Robinson is entering the 2025-26 season with something to prove. And if he delivers, this might finally be the year Knicks fans get the ending they've been dreaming of. So here's what came out on First Take this morning, and it caught a lot of people off guard. NBA insiders are reporting a surprising new wrinkle in the New York Knicks' free agency plan. We already knew they were keeping tabs on a number of players, but now there's a fresh name surfacing in the conversation, one that's suddenly getting a lot more attention. The debate right now isn't just about who they should sign, but who actually fits best with what Mike Brown wants to build going into next season. And according to the panel, there's been a major update worth breaking down. Now, if you've been following the Knicks off-season chatter, you've probably noticed how many free agents have been linked to them over the past few weeks. It feels like every other day there's a new rumor, but the one that keeps coming back is Ben Simmons. Like it or not, Simmons has been at the center of conversations for multiple teams, including the Knicks and the Kings, as a potential low-cost, high-upside bench piece on a veteran's minimum deal. And, just like we've seen with every fan base that's connected to him, the reaction is split. Some see the upside, others can't get past the concern. What First Take emphasized, however, is that Simmons isn't the only name floating around in the conversation. Another intriguing possibility, and one that instantly grabbed the panel's attention, is Russell Westbrook. This isn't the first time his name has come up. SNY has touched on this scenario before, and one of the analysts earlier today doubled down on the idea. Though, with a heavy dose of realism, Westbrook is still very much a long shot. The Knicks' backcourt is already jam-packed, with established guards carving out significant roles, and there's no obvious path to giving Westbrook consistent, meaningful minutes. Still, there's an undeniable case to be made for him. When you put him side by side with Simmons and Malcolm Brogdon, Westbrook has arguably been the more impactful presence over the past few seasons. Not necessarily in raw scoring numbers, but in the way he influences the game's tempo and energy. While it's true that he's lost a fraction of that explosive first step that made him an MVP, Westbrook has managed to reinvent himself. He's embraced the gritty side of the game, playing hard-nosed perimeter defense, pushing the ball in transition with urgency, and injecting instant energy into whatever lineup he's in. There's also the intangible factor, that relentless competitive fire that's been his trademark for over a decade. He doesn't coast through possessions, he doesn't shy away from physicality, and he has a knack for creating momentum-shifting plays that don't always show up in the box score. On a short-term, low-cost deal, that kind of presence could be a quiet but significant boost for New York, especially in stretches where the offense goes stagnant. The real sticking point is whether Westbrook would be willing to embrace that kind of reduced role, essentially coming in as a spark off the bench, when the Knicks already have three capable guards ahead of him in the rotation. It's a balancing act between opportunity, ego, and fit. And as of now, that's what keeps this idea in the interesting but unlikely category. Last season, Westbrook averaged 13 points, 5 rebounds, and 6 assists. Not quite the numbers he posted in his prime, but still the production of a legitimate NBA point guard. He's never been a great outside shooter, but he quietly knocked down 43% of his corner threes, while shooting 45% overall from the field and 32% from deep, right around his career average. At 37 years old next season, entering his 18th year, he's not the superstar he once was, but he's still a competitor who can impact games in bursts. When you stack him up against Ben Simmons statistically, Westbrook still comes out ahead in most categories. Simmons, of course, brings elite defense, position flexibility, and the ability to initiate the offense. And that's exactly why the Knicks are intrigued. His averages last year, 5 points, 5 rebounds, and 5.5 assists on 52% shooting, don't jump off the page, but his defensive impact does. Then there's Malcolm Brogdon, another player the Knicks have had interest in before. The panel noted that he had an uncharacteristically rough shooting year, hitting just 28% from deep. But they chalked it up to the losing situation he was in, saying that on a winning team like New York, he could bounce back to his career norm. We've seen him play at a high level in Indiana and Boston, so it's not unrealistic. Even in a down year, Brogdon still averaged 13 points, 4 rebounds, and 4 assists, while hitting 40% on corner threes. He's a steady defender and a veteran who knows his role. Exactly the kind of piece that could quietly strengthen a rotation without the spotlight that comes with bigger names. And here's the point that kept coming up on First Take. The Knicks already have a crowded backcourt. That's the #1 reason they're leaning more toward Ben Simmons than some of these other names. Simmons isn't locked into just one role. He can slide into multiple positions, defend across the board, and still initiate the offense. Westbrook, on the other hand, is a pure point guard. That's who he's always been. And at this stage of his career, that's not going to change. The Knicks have been very intentional about surrounding Jalen Brunson with other ball handlers, so he doesn't have to dominate the rock every single possession. In that sense, Westbrook does check some boxes for Mike Brown's system. He brings pace, leadership, and the kind of relentless energy that pushes a team forward. But you can't ignore the reality. He's not a shooter. And in today's NBA, that's a big limitation. Now, he's still quick, still knows how to speed up a game, and he could be an extension of the coaching staff on the floor. That's the veteran advantage. And while this Knicks roster isn't particularly young, most of these guys are in their prime, which means it's less about him mentoring a bunch of kids and more about adding another experienced competitor who knows what it takes to win. Statistically, Westbrook's playoff run was respectable, averaging 11.7 points, 4 rebounds, and 2.5 assists over 13 games in roughly 24 minutes a night. On paper, those numbers might not leap off the page, but they speak to a veteran who still knows how to impact a game in bursts. His shooting splits, however, told a different story, just under 40% from the field and 32% from beyond the arc. In the modern NBA, where spacing has become a non-negotiable for most playoff teams, that inefficiency becomes more noticeable. And in certain lineups, particularly if you pair him with Mitchell Robinson and Josh Hart, the floor can get cramped fast. Defenses will sag off, clog the paint, and dare multiple players to shoot, which can throw an entire offense out of rhythm. That's essentially the same issue that has followed Ben Simmons throughout his career. Size, strength, and defensive versatility are valuable. But if opponents don't respect your jumper, the offense can stagnate. Even so, Westbrook showed there's still juice in his game. He had big moments, most notably his standout Game 7 performance against the Clippers, where he posted 16 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, and 5 steals while shooting efficiently from the floor. Beyond the box score, his energy and intensity set a tone for his teammates, often giving his squad a boost when they needed it most. He also delivered in clutch situations during Denver's playoff run, including a critical game-winning steal in Game 1 of their first-round series that completely shifted the momentum. Plays like that are why coaches still trust him in high-leverage moments. He has the instincts, the experience, and the competitive fire to swing a game. But as the analysts noted, it's a move with clear pros and cons. The upside is leadership, playoff experience, and the ability to take over stretches of a game. The downside is fit and spacing, factors that can make or break a team's postseason success. And here's the twist. The Knicks aren't the only team in on Russ. The Kings reportedly have dreams of pairing Jonathan Kuminga with Westbrook this offseason. Meanwhile, there's another name that some in New York's front office are quietly pushing: Landry Shamet. The logic here is simple. The Knicks could use another quick-release shooter. Shamet proved his value when given consistent playoff minutes, shooting a ridiculous 54% from 3 in limited action. He's not going to run your offense, but that's what Jordan Clarkson's for. And the Knicks may be overlooking the fact that Clarkson can already take on that role. To me, Shamet is like a budget version of Dante DiVincenzo, still effective, still reliable, but without the big price tag. If it's not Shamet, then maybe Malcolm Brogdon makes more sense. Either way, the theme from the first take discussion was clear. Get someone who can actually hit a jumper. This team already has non-shooters in the rotation, and while Josh Hart can knock down shots when needed, he's not a high-volume threat. Adding another player who can't stretch the floor is risky, and it's why the front office needs to think carefully before going all in on someone like Simmons or Westbrook. Josh Hart's reluctance to consistently take shots from deep remains a talking point. At his best, he's proven he can be an effective shooter. He's had entire seasons hovering around the 40% mark from 3. Over the last 2 postseasons, Hart has connected on 37% of his attempts from beyond the arc, showing he can deliver when it matters most. But during the regular season, that same confidence isn't always there, and it impacts the offense. While regular season wins and losses aren't the main concern, having him fully committed to taking those open looks is crucial. If that hesitation carries into the year, and you add players like Russell Westbrook or Ben Simmons into the mix alongside Mitchell Robinson, spacing could quickly become an issue. That kind of congestion would limit the fluidity of Mike Brown's offense, making it far less effective. So the question is, who should New York target next? Would you be interested in seeing Westbrook in a Knicks jersey? Drop your thoughts below. There's still plenty to cover in free agency, and upcoming discussions will connect these rumors to broader roster strategies rather than just throwing out random player names or Photoshop swaps back-to-back. The countdown to training camp has officially begun, and the excitement is real. We're just weeks away from basketball being back, and with that comes a wave of roster activity. Expect the Knicks to fill out training camp spots, finalize two-way deals, lock in a veteran minimum signing, and add a rookie minimum contract. The next few days and weeks will be busy, and every move will be worth tracking. Stay tuned, keep notifications on, and get ready for non-stop updates as the Knicks gear up for a pivotal season. So here's what was said on First Take earlier today. And yeah, it's shaking things up. The Knicks might not be done just yet. After a huge offseason so far, they're apparently working behind the scenes to make one more unexpected move. And this one? It's catching a lot of people off guard. According to what's being discussed on First Take, league insiders have revealed that the Knicks are not only exploring a new addition, they are now actually the favorites to sign Ben Simmons. Yes, Ben Simmons in free agency. The move isn't just speculation anymore. Sources close to the situation say it's real, and that the Knicks front office believes it could be finalized very soon. It's been reported by multiple outlets, including updates cited during today's show, that New York is planning to offer Simmons a veteran minimum contract. And while that's not exactly breaking the bank, the potential impact of this move is causing a lot of buzz. The Knicks still had one of those vet minimum deals available, and according to insiders, they were simply waiting for the right player. Well, that wait might finally be over. What First Take pointed out is that both Boston and New York had previously been exploring Simmons, but after Boston locked in Chris Boucher yesterday, the door apparently swung wide open for the Knicks. They're now being called the front-runners to land Simmons, and there are even betting odds to support that. Speaking of which, First Take also highlighted data from FanDuel. Yes, the same FanDuel that regularly updates NBA odds, and even they now list the Knicks as the leading candidate to sign Simmons. Let that sink in. The Knicks, with all the moves they've already made this offseason, are this close to adding Ben Simmons to the mix. And look, whether you like the idea or not, that's a major development. Now, naturally, this raises a very real question, one that was debated directly on First Take. Why Ben Simmons? Of all the players still on the market, why is New York seriously entertaining this? What's the motive? Who's pushing for this behind closed doors? Well, First Take brought up something really interesting. According to their sources, Newly hired Knicks head coach Mike Brown may be one of the people driving this. Apparently, Mike Brown was a big supporter of Simmons when he was coaching the Kings. He was reportedly pushing hard to bring Simmons to Sacramento last year, but that never happened. Now in New York, Brown may be seeing a second chance, and this time, he might just get his guy. NBA insider Brandon "Scoop" B. Robinson, whose insights were referenced during the show, added even more context. According to him, there's mutual interest between Simmons and the Knicks. It's not just a one-way street. Simmons reportedly sees New York as an appealing fit, and the Knicks are at least seriously entertaining the idea. So this isn't just some wild rumor. This is gaining momentum. What's interesting is that Scoop B also shared some of the internal thinking behind this, why Brown and the Knicks staff might actually value what Simmons brings. According to what was said on First Take, it comes down to a combination of defensive versatility, court vision, and, believe it or not, shooting. Yeah, that last one sparked a lot of reactions. Because let's be honest, when you hear someone try to sell you on Ben Simmons' shooting, you have to do a double take. That's not exactly the first thing that comes to mind when his name pops up. If we're being real, Simmons has never been known for his shot. Far from it. But what First Take clarified is that it's not about jumpers or long-range scoring. It's about decision-making, facilitating, and defensive switchability. That's what Mike Brown sees value in. Simmons still has real tools. He can handle the ball, he can guard 4 positions, he can create for others, and he rebounds well. And in the right role, especially off the bench, those skills can still make a difference. But this is where the debate really heated up on the show. Because once you dig into the basketball fit, things get a little more complicated. The biggest issue? Spacing. If Simmons signs with the Knicks, and they run lineups where he shares the floor with someone like Mitchell Robinson, who also isn't a shooter, the offense suddenly becomes much more congested. That was pointed out directly on First Take, and it's a legitimate concern. 2 non-shooters on the floor in today's NBA can limit what you can run offensively, especially if you're trying to space the floor and create driving lanes for players like Brunson or Mikal Bridges. The show also touched on lineup construction. What 3 players are you surrounding Simmons and Robinson with to balance that floor? Can it work? Is there enough shooting around them to cover that liability? The Knicks have shooters, sure, but asking them to consistently bail out lineups that feature 2 non-threats from the perimeter is asking a lot. And for those of you who followed my breakdowns of the Knicks over the past few seasons, you know I haven't been the biggest believer in Simmons' fit here. That hasn't changed. Even with the defensive upside, the rebounding, the occasional playmaking flash, there are questions, legitimate ones, because when he's on the floor, he changes the dynamic of what you can do offensively. But to be fair, and this was emphasized by multiple voices on First Take, the Knicks aren't signing Simmons to be a star. They're not even signing him to be a starter. This is about adding depth, versatility, and maybe giving Mike Brown the kind of chess piece he didn't have in Sacramento. It's a low-risk, high-upside play. A minimum deal. No long-term commitment. But it still changes how this team might look next season. So that's where things stand right now. According to everything said on First Take this morning, the Knicks are on the verge of signing Ben Simmons. And whether you think it's a good move or a mistake, it's hard to deny. It's bold. It's unexpected. And if nothing else, it's going to be interesting to watch. Now listen, you've heard my take plenty of times, and I've made it clear. I don't think Ben Simmons is a fit for this Knicks squad. I really don't. But maybe it's not about my opinion today. Maybe it's about what some other voices around the league are saying, real analysts, insiders with sources, and what they're revealing about this situation. Let's talk about James L. Edwards from The Athletic, who weighed in on this very topic in his latest mailbag. A fan asked him straight up, is Ben Simmons really on the Knicks' radar? Is this something they're seriously pursuing? And Edwards didn't hold back. He confirmed what we've been hearing across the board. The Knicks have discussed Simmons, especially with that open minimum roster spot they're holding on to. That means, if you're counting, that's at least 4 different respected NBA insiders confirming this interest from New York. 4. And we're not just talking rumors in the wind. We're talking credible league sources pointing to the Knicks as the frontrunners to bring Simmons in on a vet minimum deal. This isn't smoke anymore. There's fire here. But then, James L. Edwards added something that should give everyone pause. He said, and I'm paraphrasing here, "You're really going to design a custom offense around a backup point guard who doesn't even want to look at the basket? That's not just questionable. It's dangerous." It means that adding Simmons could complicate the entire Knicks system. His lack of scoring aggressiveness, the fact that he actively avoids shots, it forces your whole offense to adjust just to accommodate one guy who may only play 10 to 15 minutes a night. And remember, New York already has guys like Josh Hart and Mitchell Robinson, who aren't known for spacing the floor. Throw in Ben Simmons, and suddenly you've got 3 non-shooters in a 5-man lineup. That's a nightmare for spacing. You're trying to run a 5-out system this year? Good luck doing that with Simmons dragging gravity away from the rim. That dream dies the minute you send him to the scorer's table. I know some fans are still holding out hope. Hey, maybe he just needs a change of scenery. Or he's still young. He was an all-star. But we've seen that story before. Remember when the Sixers traded him to Brooklyn? Everyone said he'd be reborn. They'll fix him. What happened? Nothing changed. In fact, he played less, not more. And now the idea is that the Knicks are going to be the team to finally unlock him? Let's stop pretending that this is about potential. Let's talk results. Simmons hasn't played a full season in years. The injuries? Still a concern. His confidence? Still shattered. And now you're telling me that a franchise with real momentum, finally headed in the right direction, is about to throw this guy into the mix? And here's the craziest part. The Knicks don't need him. Not even close. In fact, FanDuel, the sports book that puts money where its mouth is, just listed the Knicks as one of the top 3 teams to win the 2025 NBA Cup. Let that sink in. Without Ben Simmons, without another splashy signing, the odds makers are already projecting the Knicks as legit contenders. According to the odds, it's OKC, the Knicks, and the Cavs leading the pack. New York is listed at plus 550 to take home the NBA Cup. That puts them ahead of teams like the Celtics, the Nuggets, even the Suns. The only teams with shorter odds? OKC and maybe Cleveland. That means the Knicks, as currently built, are already in a position to have one of the best regular season records in the league. So here's my thing. Why risk that chemistry? Why throw a wrench into a system that's finally working? You're not bringing in a star-level Simmons here. You're not getting 2019 Simmons. You're getting a guy who's barely been on the court for the last 3 seasons. And instead of looking for someone who can enhance spacing, someone who complements Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle, we're talking about Ben Simmons? If they really want to make a move, go find a wing who can stretch the floor. Go get a vet who's not going to clog the paint and cause defensive collapse. You're trying to be a modern NBA offense? Adding Simmons is like trying to run a Tesla on diesel. It just doesn't work. Look, I hope I'm wrong. I hope Simmons proves everyone wrong and rediscovers that early career spark. But if we're being real, that's a massive if. And for a Knicks team that's finally earned some respect around the league, this just feels like an unnecessary gamble. So yeah, according to every source, Simmons to New York looks like it's going to happen. But if it does, don't say I didn't warn you. We've got a major development involving the New York Knicks that aired earlier on SportsCenter, and it's sparking some serious conversation across the league. A critical update just dropped. New York is now actively exploring a trade framework to bring Derek White to Madison Square Garden. On top of that, there's new insight into head coach Mike Brown's role in targeting defensive-minded guards this offseason. We're going to break down what this move could mean for the Knicks and how it might reshape their backcourt dynamics. Let's start with the trade pursuit itself. Earlier today, ESPN insiders confirmed that the Knicks have initiated discussions centered around Derek White. Even though Boston has been hesitant to break up their championship core, the Celtics are facing tough financial decisions, and White, entering the final year of his deal, is suddenly a real trade candidate. For New York, this is exactly the type of player they've been eyeing. A proven two-way guard with postseason pedigree. According to reporting from The Athletic, League executives believe Boston could listen to offers if the package includes a blend of draft capital and win-now talent. And the explanation makes sense. The Celtics are navigating the second apron and need to shed future salary to preserve roster flexibility. What The Athletic laid out was pretty telling. Boston may not actively shop White, but if a deal lines up with their long-term cap strategy, they won't hesitate to pull the trigger. Here's where it gets even more interesting. The Knicks are one of the few teams positioned to absorb Derek White's contract without gutting their core. They've got several expiring deals and mid-level contracts that can be bundled, and perhaps more importantly, they're motivated. With Mike Brown now at the helm, there's a clear emphasis on improving the team's point-of-attack defense, especially after getting exposed in key playoff matchups. White's reputation as an elite perimeter defender fits perfectly with that vision. And here's the technical layer that makes this all the more feasible. White is owed just under $20 million for the upcoming season, a number that falls right into New York's sweet spot for trade matching. More importantly, his contract status gives the Knicks an opportunity. They can either extend him with bird rights or let the deal expire depending on how the season unfolds. That type of flexibility is rare, and it's one of the reasons front office execs are giving this scenario serious weight. So what would a potential trade look like? Sources close to the situation suggest a package involving Quentin Grimes, a protected future first-rounder, and perhaps Bojan Bogdanovic's expiring deal could get Boston's attention. While it's unclear how aggressive New York is willing to be, there's no denying that Derek White represents the kind of defensive-minded, playoff-tested talent the Knicks have lacked in recent years. Meanwhile, SportsCenter highlighted White's impact last season, especially during Boston's finals run. His ability to guard multiple positions, space the floor, and contribute without dominating the ball makes him an ideal fit next to Jalen Brunson. And given how stacked the East has become, adding a player like White could be the edge New York needs to stay competitive. And here's the betting angle that adds even more intrigue. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, just updated its title odds following rumors of White possibly being on the move. The Knicks' championship odds saw a subtle bump, moving from plus 2,800 to plus 2,500, a clear sign that odds makers are taking this chatter seriously. So let's call it what it is. The Knicks are officially in the mix for Derek White. The front office is exploring every angle, the money makes sense, and the roster fit is undeniable. Now, it's just a matter of whether Boston is ready to part ways with one of their key postseason heroes. It's a brutal reminder that building a contender requires more than just cap space and draft picks. It's about timing, fit, and opportunity. And that's exactly where the Knicks find themselves right now as they zero in on Derek White. As we shift gears and continue breaking down this developing story, SportsCenter analysts pointed out earlier today, New York sees White as the missing piece on both ends of the court, and they may be willing to part with real assets to make it happen. Now, according to FanDuel, the Knicks' projected win total for next season currently sits at 49.5, with the over getting heavy action at 120 odd. That tells us something important. Expectations are rising, and bringing in someone like Derek White, who just helped Boston win a title, would only raise the bar even higher. Bottom line, the Knicks know they're close, and that's why this pursuit of White isn't just exploratory, it's strategic. And while they may not have as many first-rounders to offer following the official loss of the 2026 Wizards pick, the Knicks have been quietly stacking second-round value and mid-tier trade chips. One of those assets? Mohamed Diarra. Drafted as a project, Diarra turned heads in Summer League with his mobility, energy, and nose for the ball. Knicks personnel are reportedly thrilled with his development curve, and he may not be as far from contributing as originally thought. That gives New York some flexibility in how they manage the back end of the rotation if they pull off a major deal. Add that to a free agency period that's been anything but slow. The Knicks made strong additions with Jordan Clarkson and Guerschon Yabusele, two high-upside veterans who bring toughness and scoring versatility. And as of now, they still have one veteran minimum slot available, a key chip for rounding out the roster depending on how the Derek White situation unfolds. Which brings us to Mike Brown. One of the bigger questions around the league right now is, how involved is the Knicks' new head coach in shaping these moves? According to NBA insider Ian Begley, Brown isn't just consulting, he's co-piloting. On his most recent Knicks mailbag, Begley revealed that Mike Brown has been directly involved in evaluating trade targets like Derek White, even initiating interest in players who match his preferred style. That level of input is a huge cultural shift for the Knicks. Under Tom Thibodeau, there were stretches where front office decisions didn't always match the rotation patterns on the floor. But with Brown, the structure appears to be more collaborative. Coaching and management are in sync, and that could make all the difference. So if we're hearing legitimate buzz about the Knicks targeting Derek White, or even circling back to names like Malcolm Brogdon or Landry Shamet, it's safe to assume Mike Brown has signed off. In fact, sources suggest he's playing a key role in the decision-making process for the final roster spot. And this is where things get especially interesting. Sources told SportsCenter this morning that the Knicks are preparing for what they're calling a surgical final move. It's not a blockbuster, but it could be a tone-setter, the kind of acquisition that completes the rotation with purpose and poise. For those skeptical about White's fit, or whether Boston would even consider dealing him, remember, this front office doesn't chase noise. They build methodically. Leon Rose and company aren't just reacting to the market. They're working angles most teams overlook. So while the official loss of the 2026 Wizards pick stings, Knicks fans shouldn't lose sight of the bigger picture. This team is building towards something serious, and a Derek White addition could be the piece that brings it all together. To wrap up, the message remains crystal clear. New York is in an aggressive win-now posture. Mike Brown is at the heart of these decisions. And with one roster spot left to fill, the next move could tell us everything we need to know about how serious this team is about making a run. Stay tuned. SportsCenter will have the latest as soon as more details emerge. So here's how it went down earlier today on First Take. And this one had the Knicks fan base buzzing. The conversation kicked off with the panel diving straight into the team's free agency board, pointing out that New York is actively evaluating multiple guards right now. Among the names being floated, DeLon Wright. Yes, the same Wright who suited up for the Knicks last season and left a strong impression with his defensive work. But here's the real headline. We just got a significant update on who could potentially fill that backup point guard role off the bench next season. And trust me, the way it was broken down on the show, you could feel how much weight this decision carries for the front office. The discussion quickly shifted to the facts. New York has exactly one open roster spot remaining, and it's likely going to a veteran on a minimum deal. Ben Simmons is at the center of this conversation, with the panel making it clear that, like it or not, the Knicks are currently viewed as the frontrunners to land him. That doesn't mean it's a done deal, though. Simmons could still choose to sign elsewhere, and if that happens, the Knicks' front office would need to pivot fast. From there, First Take analysts dove deeper into what that strategic pivot might actually look like for New York. According to fresh reporting from James L. Edwards of The Athletic, the lingering question of who's running the second unit at point guard next season remains not just unanswered, but wide open for interpretation. Edwards emphasized that, in his view, the answer simply isn't on the roster at this moment. While he acknowledged Tyler Cole's upside, praising his poise, vision, and ability to push the pace, Edwards expressed skepticism that the Knicks would be willing to hand such a crucial role to a rookie with no NBA track record, especially when the team is entering the season with championship-level expectations and minimal margin for error. He noted that backup point guard minutes in this environment aren't just about managing the offense, they're about preserving Jalen Brunson's health, maintaining momentum when the starters rest, and ensuring there's no drop-off in competitiveness against elite second units around the league. That's when the conversation naturally shifted to Miles Deuce McBride, a player who has consistently earned praise for his defensive tenacity and unshakable mentality. Edwards argued that McBride's skill set is at its best when he's deployed as an off-ball guard, where his quick hands, defensive instincts, and spot-up shooting ability can truly shine without the added responsibility of orchestrating the offense. However, Edwards didn't completely shut down the idea of McBride taking on those backup point guard duties if the Knicks opt to fill the position from within. The panel wrestled with that possibility. Some analysts pointed out that McBride's work ethic, improved decision-making, and steady growth suggest he could surprise people if given the chance to run the second unit. Others, however, cautioned that moving him away from his natural style of play could blunt his strengths and limit the team's overall efficiency. The debate underscored the tension between banking on internal development and seeking outside help, a decision that could quietly become one of the defining factors in the Knicks' season. Now, looping back to the free agent market, Edwards named several guards worth monitoring if Simmons chooses another team. Malcolm Brogdon, Landry Shamet, DeLon Wright, and Monty Morris were all mentioned as legitimate options. And here's where chemistry became part of the conversation. Shamet already has on-court familiarity with several Knicks rotation players, and Wright built his own connections during his time in New York last season. While Wright's scoring punch is modest, his playmaking and defensive presence make him an intriguing option, especially considering the Knicks have openly prioritized adding more defensive-minded veterans this offseason. The First Take crew highlighted that Wright's ability to disrupt opposing guards, force turnovers, and stabilize the defense was a real asset during his previous stint in New York. At the same time, Shamet's shooting from deep and solid perimeter defense were also seen as strong selling points. So if Simmons passes on the Knicks and maybe joins a team like Boston, the expectation is that New York would quickly shift gears toward a player like Shamet or Brogdon. For now, though, it's a waiting game. As the panel bluntly put it, everything stops until Ben Simmons decides. Multiple teams are holding their next moves until his future is settled. Once that domino falls, the market for other free agents will open up, and the Knicks will either have Simmons in their backcourt mix, or they'll be hunting for their next best option. And that brought the conversation right back to McBride. Edwards' point stuck in the air. Could Deuce really take on that backup floor general role and thrive? Some at the table said they'd be surprised. Others weren't so sure. But one thing was unanimous. Whatever route the Knicks take, it's going to reveal a lot about how confident they are in their current guard depth, and just how aggressive they're willing to be to keep pace in an increasingly competitive Eastern Conference. It's possible that Deuce has some untapped playmaking skills none of us have seen yet, but it's just as possible that he doesn't. If Mike Brown wants to experiment with him at the backup point guard spot, I'm fine with that. Let's see how it works. Maybe Deuce surprises us and does well there. If it doesn't work, like many of us expect, then you make an adjustment. Maybe you slot Jordan Clarkson into that role, or maybe, as James Edwards suggested in his article, the Knicks haven't even signed their backup point guard yet. That player could end up being Ben Simmons, Malcolm Brogdon, or maybe even DeLon Wright. At this point, we have no idea exactly where the Knicks stand. We know Simmons is on the radar, along with a couple of other names, but beyond that, the picture isn't clear. What I do know for certain is that Kevin Love is absolutely not part of that picture, and probably never was. Let's put that rumor to rest. Thanks to Brett Siegel, an NBA insider at Clutch Points, we can. According to him, and as shared by NBA Central, word around the league is that Love wants to end up in Los Angeles. Yes, there were whispers about New York, but there's no real interest from the Knicks. And for that, thank you, Leon Rose. If the Knicks wanted a wing, Chris Boucher was sitting there for weeks before signing with Boston. Clearly, that wasn't the direction they wanted to go. So, Kevin Love to the Knicks? Never happening. If he's headed anywhere, it's probably to the Lakers. And good luck to him, if that's the case. Back to the Knicks. Whoever they sign to fill that final roster spot, it doesn't change the bigger picture. This team, as currently constructed, is a legitimate contender. Every move in free agency, every trade over the past few seasons has been building toward this moment. The Knicks are one of the favorites to win the championship next season, and the odds reflect that. Our channel sponsor FanDuel has the Knicks at 8,000 to make the playoffs, with the no option sitting at +400. In other words, don't bet against them. they're not just favored to make the playoffs, they're considered a threat to win it all. That's because of the roster, the off-season additions, the new head coach, and the all-stars leading this team. The pieces are in place to be a force in the Eastern Conference, to make a finals run, and maybe, with the right mix of luck, coaching, and chemistry, to bring a title back to New York. That chemistry part is huge. If the starters and bench can embrace their roles, sacrifice for one another, and keep the bigger goal in mind, the Knicks can be one of the league's very best team. They've got the roster, the coach, and the belief. The odds makers see it, the league sees it, and the players themselves know it. The pressure will be there. Everyone expects this team to reach the finals. Not every player can handle that, but under Mike Brown, the Knicks seem ready to embrace it. From what we're hearing, there's excitement in the locker room, excitement to play for Mike Brown, excitement for the challenge, excitement to go all the way. I'm hyped for next season and can't wait for it to start. How about you? What do you think about the possibility of the Knicks adding DeLon Wright if Ben Simmons is off the table? Drop your thoughts in the comment because I'd love to hear from you. That's it for this episode. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed it, hit the like button, leave a comment, and don't forget to subscribe. Until next time, Knicks fans, take care of yourselves, your families, and each other. Peace.